Hello everyone, 'tis I, Captain Logan, and joining me this evening, filling in for DJ Martinez, is the magnanimous Dan Torrey as our chat moderator and producer this evening. Hello, Dan.
Oh, sorry, your audio cut out for a second there. But hello, everyone.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good.
I can hear myself. You got to turn me off, man.
Okay, there we go.
You got it? What a rookie mistake, Dan. Dan, thanks for filling in for DJ, man. I appreciate you being here.
You are welcome. Thank you for having me, and I'm ready to have a good time.
It's going to be great. So DJ is on vacation this week. His wife bought him a week-long trip to Mexico, and that's what they're doing, and they seem to be having an absolute lovely time. You know, every time DJ or his wife post pictures of them on vacation on Facebook, I'm just reminded of how much cooler those guys are than I am.
Yeah, no, they seem to go on like really cool trips and stuff. Like, I'm very envious of that. I would like to have the time and the money to be able to do that. That sounds really fun.
They look like they've been on and won a trip on Price is Right like 3 times a year.
Oh, really?
Like their trips just always look like so much more interesting than the ones I take. I don't know.
Well, you and Sarah should. I mean, you guys went to Germany, so
yeah. No, we've done some cool things.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I don't mean to sound self-conscious. I'm just saying DJ's living a very interesting life, and he's a cool guy. And
he is a cool guy. Yeah.
It's just wonderful to get to work with him and be friends with him. And but tonight we're all saddled with Dan Torrey, and Dan and I are going to, as always, take questions from you for at least an hour, if not 2. We are going to do a regular Ask Me Anything show after we get past the lead-in topic, and a short lead-in topic tonight, just the craziest news I've heard in a long time, and maybe the thing this year I am now most excited about. Although I guess this won't come out this year, but the thing I have found is happening that I'm suddenly most stoked for, because it shouldn't exist, and it's nuts, and we'll talk about that, and a lot of you guys won't care, but I'm excited about it, so that's what I want to talk about. The Moon Knight trailer just dropped. I saw that seconds before we started broadcasting, so I don't have thoughts together about that, but I can try to formulate some if anybody wants us to talk about that. Dan, did you see that trailer?
I did, yes.
So we can talk about that if anybody wants to. If you want to, make sure that your question, comment, concern, idea, brilliant notion, or oceans of notions are discussed on the program this evening. You can leave a super chat in any dollar amount. That will guarantee that your thing is talked about. But don't feel like you have to do that. Dan will, of course, take a look at some of the pre-written questions in the comments section as well, and make sure that you direct your questions at Dan Torrey, or what account are you using right now? Because you've got like 6 YouTube accounts at this point. Are you in there as the Conan one, or just as Dan Torrey, or?
I was logged into the Conan one when I entered the chat, so.
It doesn't make a difference to me.
I can see the Torrey GNR tags that people are doing.
Oh, so okay, great, sure. So at Torrey GNR1, at Dan Torrey, at Conan the whatever podcast, however you want to talk to Dan, make sure that he sees your question. He'll know that at him doesn't mean necessarily that your question is directed specifically to Dan, but that it is a question at large for the show tonight. You also, of course, can ask questions just to Dan if you want to, and I'm sure he will be happy to answer them within reason. Let me use that as a segue to do a little bit of plug-in for the both of us. It's time for a little segment I like to call HR plug-in stuff. And Dan, what would you like to plug this evening, sir? Tell us about your brand new podcast.
Yeah, so I started making a new podcast. I have 4 episodes out right now, and I have 5 almost in the can. I was editing that actually right before we came on. It's a podcast about Conan the Barbarian. So right now I'm reviewing all of the Robert E. Howard short stories in prose, and after I finish those, I plan to move on to the Marvel Comics series by Roy Thomas and primarily John Buscema as the artist. That eventually splits into at least 3 books. It's kind of like their Claremontian masterpiece. They stay on the Conan books for like 15, 20 years. So I'm really looking forward to reading all that stuff and reviewing it. The Robert E. Howard stories have also been really fun. So yeah, if you're at all interested in like fantasy stuff, if you liked like the reviews me and Cap did, for example, on the Thor stuff, it's kind of similar. It's a fantasy world that's got elements of science fiction. So it's a cool thing. And I hope you guys enjoy it if you decide to check it out.
It's a lot like the reviews we did of that, except with 100% less of me hemming and hawing.
Yes.
Stay tuned here for lots more of that. Dan is also planning on trying to be on more Comic Vaults in the coming weeks and months. We've got some ideas and some things we're going to be doing. I should also mention that Kareem and I are going to try to start reviewing Nightfall starting next month. And hopefully we're able to get that off the ground. People will occasionally ask me about Nightfall because I was doing the Batcap series and life happened, and I unfortunately was forced to stop that. But a lot of people were asking for more kind of traditional vaults with that, and to go for kind of trade by trade or arc by arc. And I haven't decided exactly yet how many videos we're going to do on that because there's so much material. I don't really want to do entire trades with that because there's so much material that we would have to kind of gloss over. So it's more likely to be instead of 5 or 6 videos, 10, 12, 15 eventually, and I'm sure that'll happen over the course of time, and hopefully we'll get to all of it and it won't be yet another series that we get halfway through and stop. We still haven't gotten all of Ultimate Spider-Man with Eric and I out. There's still a few videos left that I've got to edit that I just have not had time to do, and then he and I need to get together at some point and finish that. And I've not seen Eric in 5, 6 months, I think. We still talk all the time, but we've just both been too busy, and I haven't been having people over all that often. Anyway, Dan, the twins are officially 6 months old as of this week.
Whoop, whoop.
I don't know where all that time went, but
That's
yeah.
awesome.
No time for socializing. I don't know how I even get any of this out, to be perfectly honest with you. And having said that, I'm sorry, what
It
were you
sounds like you're balancing it all decently well. You seem happy and healthy. So.
Oh, well, thanks, man. Yeah, I'm doing fine. I wish I had 39 hours in my day, but
Yeah,
we're
don't we
making
all?
it. We're making it work. So since I don't have any time at all to make videos, this weekend I'm attempting 4. We'll see if everything actually gets out. But tonight, of course, we're doing the Captain Logan show. Tomorrow, this is my plug, by the way. Tomorrow night, we're going to be shooting our brand new game show, a pilot for that may or may not continue. We'll see how much interest there is in that, although we had a decent number of applicants to be on that show. And if you didn't make it, don't worry, because if there's enough interest and we do continue making that show, we'll be going back to, we'll open up for auditions again, but we'll be looking at those initial auditions to bring in at least some of the contestants for future episodes. We had lots of good entries, and everybody looked cool, so you have a good shot if you put in an audition to get on at some point. And I want to say thanks to Dan for choosing the folks tomorrow night that will be on Are You Geekier Than the Day Ghost. I chose not to pick it myself. Originally, I'd planned on that. I actually announced it that way. And then I went, wait a minute, I've already written the whole game. I wrote all the questions. And then I'm seeing contestants saying, because I said, give me your 3, geekiest things. And a lot of people were talking about interests, of course. And so you'd have somebody that's like, I'm real big into this thing. Somebody else, I'm real big into this thing. And I'm like, if I pick, it might look like there's a bias here, or like I intentionally didn't bring someone on because of, not to give anything away about the show tomorrow night, questions I know are there that might, where I might be avoiding that person getting too many questions right, and that sort of thing. So, and then obviously, since Austin is playing against those people, it wouldn't really be fair for him to help pick. So I decided to go to a third party, a relatively impartial party, and I asked Dan to do it. And Dan, was it fun watching all those audition tapes?
It was. It reminded me of like the Who Reviews the Reviewer days with all the like audition tapes and stuff. It was cool.
But a lot shorter. We didn't have to watch nearly as many of them.
Yeah, true. But it was cool to see like some of the people I'd seen like comment on stuff like over the years, like in person, and like hear their voices and stuff. Like that was just really interesting. And most of the people were really awesome. I mean, I guess I don't know why I said most people. They were all awesome.
You know who you are. I'm just joking.
So awesome. We love you all.
But I want to say congratulations to the two contestants that are going to be on the show tomorrow night. That's Thomas Ledbetter and Checkers. So those guys are going to be with us 10 p.m. Central Time tomorrow night. I don't know for sure how long the show is going to go because I haven't had any way really to do a trial run of it. It'll be at least 45 minutes, if not an hour. And I tried to write the game long enough that we wouldn't be broadcasting for 20 minutes and then say bye. So anyway, got a cool prize in store. And then the person, I will go ahead and announce this. The person that manages to defeat the Day Ghost, assuming, or I should say, if the Day Ghost gets third place, the winner of the whole game also will get a cash prize. So, anyway, look forward to that. So I have a vested interest in Austin getting at least second place. Because then I don't have to give a cash prize.
It's going to be very interesting to see. I mean, Austin is a very knowledgeable geek, so it's going to be interesting to see if anyone can dethrone him.
And also, it might wreck the entire concept if he's completely dethroned the first game.
Yeah, very true.
I actually have more of a vested interest tomorrow night than any other episode of that show if we continue that he doesn't get third place. So the way it's going to work is you have two contestants that aren't Austin, and whichever of those defeats the other will automatically win the main prize for the night. But if Austin is totally taken out before the bonus round, or if the person who beats the other person goes against Austin at the end and beats him in the bonus round, there's a cash prize. Either direction that goes. And the reason I set it up that way is because originally I was going to make it a kind of weakest link, get knocked off each round kind of thing. And I decided I didn't want to bump people out of a call in the middle of a live show. That's the main reason I did that. I like, if you made it to the show, I wanted you to get to hang out with us the entire hour or however long we go. So that was the whole reason I set it up that way. So hopefully it works out and it's fun for folks. I hope it's an enjoyable game. I did my level best. It's been a while since I've done trivia stuff and anything like this. I did a lot of game show type things for 15 years, running a Star Trek club. And I've done some live trivia events and things like that. So I have a lot of experience in this department, but it's been a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you doing your level best is more than any other YouTube channel I've seen interact with their viewers. Not many YouTubers make game shows to like play with their viewers. That's really cool. So, like, I think you're gonna do great.
Saturday night, I'm going to be trying something on a new platform, or a platform that I've not broadcasted on. It's not actually a new platform. It's actually one of the oldest live streaming platforms there is, and used to be a lot more popular. Not as many folks are there and know about it now, which is part of why I want to go there, or part of why I want to go there to be a little bit more I don't want to say off the radar, but not having to worry as much about copyright things and censorship and that kind of stuff. It's kind of the reason I've stayed off at Twitch. I've heard some horror stories about just really innocuous things that people have put in titles or said in Twitch things where you'll get booted because you're not PC enough or something, and I just don't want to have to worry about that while I'm broadcasting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was playing two of the new Ubisoft games on my Xbox. I was playing Riders Republic, which is like a extreme sports racing game, and I was playing Far Cry 6. And both of those games have options to turn off copyrighted music so that you don't get flagged on Twitch. Yeah, it's nice for people who are streamers, but it's also at the same time
stupid that they had to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to be broadcasting Saturday night on a platform called YouNow, which you can, and I'll put a link to that once I get everything set up, and I'll let you guys know exactly when I'm broadcasting. I'll put up a post in social media and possibly even a quick video on the channel. But that'll be, again, Saturday night, 10 Central, just like the show we're doing tomorrow. I'm having to do things late right now because of putting kids to bed and that kind of thing. So it's late, but the show will be available afterwards there too if you want to go back and look at it, just like on YouTube. But I'm going to be doing a lot of things over there that I just can't do here, or that not as many people care about here, and I don't want to clog up people's inboxes and stuff. So the first show I'm going to be doing is a kind of a DJ music show, and I'm just going to be, I put together a playlist, and I won't reveal the theme yet, but I put together a cool geeky music playlist, and I'll be playing tracks and grooving out to them, and then chatting with the audience in between tracks for at least an hour, if not a couple. So pop in and hang out with me there if you're so inclined. Like I said, YouNow is the platform. You can get their app for your devices, or you can just go to their website. And then Sunday night, if everything works out according to plan, I'm hoping to do the first live unscripted superhero rewind, although with as much as I'm doing this weekend, I may not have a chance to prepare enough for it, so that is tentative right now. I might have to put that off to next Sunday, but that will be when I get to it on V for Vendetta, and I want to make sure that I'm prepared enough for that, because that's not a movie I know real well, and had never, Dan, actually seen the entire movie until about a couple months ago, when I thought I was going to be able to, be preparing to do this. But really? Yeah, somehow I never saw that whole movie.
Wow. What did you think of it?
It holds up great.
That's awesome.
Have you ever seen it?
Sorry, I was typing one of the super chats. What was the movie?
V for Vendetta.
Oh, really? Yeah. No, I like the V for Vendetta movie quite a bit. That movie's great. Yeah.
Somehow I just never seen all of it.
Yeah.
Big blind spot for me.
That movie is like very different from the book, but I don't think it's like inferior like changes. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah.
I liked the way they adapted it in that movie. It was really well done.
Well, and it doesn't feel
incredible in it.
Having not read the book, it didn't feel at all like a thing that was playing things safe or being too worried about accessibility or anything like that. Like,
no, absolutely.
It does a lot of things that could kill you in a movie theater, or that you would think maybe Warner Brothers wouldn't let you get away with.
Absolutely. It probably helped that the Wachowskis were attached to that too, because I know they produced it. Right?
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. They seem to be able to get away with anything, which is nice, as evidenced by the new Matrix movie, which was basically a giant middle finger to Warner Brothers that Warner Brothers distributed. It's wonderful.
Well, when I heard that about the second Space Jam movie, kind of too, like the Warner Brothers serververse, and like them being like cynically exploited is like the villainous plot of the movie.
Yeah, it is. No, you're right. That's meta in its way too. And it's not anything like as good of a movie, I think, as Matrix, and it's kind of bloated, but it's way more creative than I thought it would be. And you could say, like, look how exploitative it is, but it does have, you're right, it does have that Matrix 4 thing of, but it's also kind of about that, making fun of that. So, like, how exploitative is it really? Or is it just getting away with the exploitative stuff by saying, look, we're making fun of it? Like, is it a cheat? I don't know. You be the judge.
Yeah, exactly. It's just really weird to me. Warner Brothers is a company that has been like in flux writ large within the leadership of its like top brass and the various divisions. Like they can't get anyone to run DC for any length of time. They can't get anyone to run Warner Brothers like head corporate that reports to whoever owns them now. Is it Discovery? Has that deal happened yet? I don't know. But like they're being bought and sold to so many different companies. They're constantly having executives come and go. And I don't know, it just seems like in that chaos, like movies have gotten out where filmmakers are just saying like, I hate this studio, but I got to make this movie anyway. It's very strange.
Speaking of Warner's properties, I swear, you just made me think of this, head of the, DC superhero movie department is, like, Defense of the Dark Arts teacher. Like, they cannot keep that position filled.
They can't. It'll be interesting to see, like, after Justice League, they put that Walter Hamada guy in charge as the DC Films executive. It'll be interesting to see how long he lasts. I guess it'll probably depend on how, their upcoming film projects like the Flash and the Batgirl Supergirl movies too.
And if he gets booted, how quickly in the movies you'll be able to tell that, like, you know, this was a thing that was under his watch, but we already have somebody else and we've moved past that, and it's like of another era.
Yeah, no, it'll they'll totally do a 180 course correction, and everything will just be like, you know, look like the Matt Reeves Batman movie or something. Like they'll try to shove everything into the same tone like they did with Snyder. You know,
I swear every time a DC movie comes out, especially things set, you know, in squarely the DCEU, they all feel like they were made 9 years ago.
They really do.
Even if they were rushed out, they just always feel that way to me.
That's why, like, the Aquaman and Wonder Woman, the second movie, are so weird to me because they're just like very ambiguously in that continuity. I don't know what they're gonna. The Flash movie, I guess, will probably just allow them to just say, "Oh, everything that is successful we've made is in the same universe."
Yeah.
So.
And they've already sort of been pretending that, but it's awkward because you never really know what counts.
Yeah. No, exactly.
So, like, in the more recent movies, they kind of just reference things that people care about that work, or they'll pay lip service to stuff that doesn't, but they're stuck with in order to kind of build on. But it's sort of like the situation we're in with Netflix, Marvel, and MCU right now, where we're starting to use some of those characters, but you don't know if any of those events happened yet.
Yeah,
except that's backwards, because the Netflix things, you know, at least some of those shows people liked and thought were even better than a lot of what MCU was doing, and DCEU, at least for my money, is the opposite of that.
Yeah, I feel like the only things people really like from the DCEU are Wonder Woman. People seem to like Aquaman, which I don't understand. And then
that's a guilty pleasure movie for me. I'll just say I am in that camp. But I don't need more of it because they made 7 movies in one movie. Like, there's no reason to make any sequels to that. That is a 45-issue comic book run in one film. No, it's not. It's a 150-issue comic run in one film.
Yeah. No, and then, you know, people like specific actors. It's like
Cavill, good Superman, point.
Ben Affleck is Batman, but like the things they're in are not necessarily what people like.
And let's see if you agree with it. We'll get to the lead-in topic at some point. We're 20 minutes into the show. We haven't even done the lead-in topic. Dan and I never get to talk. Tell me if you agree with this. And people like Shazam, but forgot that existed.
Oh yeah, I do like Shazam, and I forgot.
But you forgot it. See, there you go. You proved my point for me.
Yeah. Well, and they're gonna like turn it into a franchise, I guess, with the second movie and then the Black Adam movie. I'm sure that they'll set up the second one being, you know, Shazam versus Black Adam. That's what I would expect.
I hope so, because the way they've been talking about it, it's almost like they're two totally separate things that aren't even connected. And I'm sure you're right. I'm sure they will connect them, but it's just weird that they haven't talked about that at all. You never hear Dwayne Johnson like, man, I can't wait until me and you know, my arch nemesis that you'd think I was in his movie in the first place are on screen together. I've never heard him say that.
Yeah, in interviews he talks about wanting to fight Superman. Like, he says that in one of his movies he will fight Superman, but he doesn't know which actor will be playing Superman yet. Like, DC has generally agreed to the vague idea of The Rock fighting Superman, which
so weird. I mean, we don't even know if it'd be Clark Kent that he fights. Like, it could be the Black Superman they're doing. You don't know. It could be anything.
Exactly. It's like, I don't know.
I mean, I would assume that's going to be its own continuity, like, you know, a Joker or the Batman or something. But then with the shared multiverse thing, all bets are off. There's no you know, like, even when they're like, this is its own thing, okay, but is it forever? I've been kind of coining this phrase lately, but we're doing shared multiverse. It's all these different franchises could potentially show up because of, you know, interdimensional travel.
Yeah, and I mean, I personally could not think of a less appealing idea, but it seems to be working for them. So, I mean, they'll just keep doing more of it.
The question is for how long? How long does that gimmick stay relevant?
I mean, I don't know. I have been kind of disillusioned with the way that these two companies are making these comic book films now myself. But to most people, it seems like this is exactly what they want. Like, they want to just see things that they fondly remember interact with these newer versions of the characters. Like that's why Michael Keaton's going to be in the Flash movie, and all the other examples of that.
But that's why I say how long before it wears off, because
Well,
that
they'll eventually
idea
run out
doesn't
of
have
things.
legs, right? Like
Yeah,
at
they'll
some point
eventually
you're out of
run out.
nostalgia things.
Yeah, they'll eventually run out of nostalgia things unless they start CGI resurrecting like Bill Bixby as the Hulk or something, which they've already done with Tarkin. So I mean, the future is bright and bold, Cap. Who knows?
At least that was a minor character in that movie for a couple of scenes. Like,
And that's the way that these,
that
these
Jimmy
can-
Dean thing needs to completely fail, right? Or is it that James Dean? That whole thing needs to not work out, because if that's popular, we're in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's from what they're doing. I mean, it's not really that far removed at this point. Like the only difference between like the special effects they do on living actors and the ones that like people are not okay with them doing with dead actors is like people are kind of trepidatious about like disrespecting the memory of them or something, which I understand.
Yeah.
But it's like I just personally see it as inevitable that these companies are going to do this regardless of how distasteful it is. I agree that it's distasteful, but I think they're probably going to do stuff like that in the future.
Call me crass, but I'm less concerned. I mean, I agree. I don't like that it's distasteful, but
Yeah.
for the artistry of it, the thing that just me as a viewer and an audience, or a critic trying to analyze a piece of art, is it's not you don't have a performance necessarily. That's what I don't like about it. It's like you had spoilers for the new Ghostbusters movie, but I mean you had Ghost Egon bookending the new Ghostbusters movie, and people ate that up with a spoon. But part of my thing with it, besides I just thought it was too sappy, but the part of my issue with it was not just did it seem a little distasteful, because people came at me when I complained about that and were like, well, the family signed off on it. What? Didn't make me like it more. I don't know. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm glad they were okay with it, whatever. But the bigger issue for me was I was looking at a CG character playing a live action guy who was played by an actor. I don't know, that's really weird to me. It's just the precedent that sets bugs me. That like eventually we'll get to a place where you can have what we'll call a live action movie that has no actors in it. Like Lion King? Like, we called that a live-action movie, but there's no live action in it? Like, you're going to get to where you have that with human beings.
Well, and this will be the thing that the logical, I guess, extension of the IP-obsessed trend in Hollywood if it continues. Like, if you have the ability to do what they did with Princess Leia at the end of Rogue One, where they just put dots on someone's face, they gave a performance and made it look like Leia, even though it looked janky at the time, and then they did the same thing with Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian. Like, there's no reason to ever have to stop making Indiana Jones movies, recast or reboot. All you do is hire a stuntman that he was willing to put dots on his face, and then you just like put the performance in with an animation.
And I mean, even if the guy has to do like a decent impression and it's kind of a performance, I'd rather we make like new original things with new actors that are giving great performances that can become this generation's Star Wars and Indiana Jones and whatever have you. I don't know how we got to this place.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the.
I just mean this conversation. I don't know how we got here. I feel like we've covered about 19 things in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, we haven't answered anyone's questions yet.
No, and we still have a lead-in topic, but we'll do that very quickly.
Okay. But yeah, I don't know. It's just the further IP obsession with these corporations that like aren't really run by creative people. So like their view of like to make a successful movie is to have a brand that's already established. So like, all that kind of stuff. And to some degree, if you're in their position, it makes sense because you have to invest like a small country's GDP to make a blockbuster movie at this point. Like it's ridiculous the amount of money they spend on these things now,
Let me say this real quick before we move on. For me anyway, the problem might soon kind of sort of solve itself to a degree, because at least for my money, part of the problem for a long time has been the world's still being stuck like 20, 30 years in the past and pretending like movie theaters are still for going to see, by and large, and I'm not saying big budget blockbusters are never this. Don't get me wrong. But by and large, movie theaters are not for exactly what they used to be. It's not as much about going to see good stories told on screen as it is big blockbuster theme park rides. And we're getting more to the point where movie theaters will only be for those, and the more sophisticated, smarter, things about relatable characters, novels or novellas on screen, more and more are going to streaming, and there's plenty of creative stuff going on, lots of different streaming services in movies and in miniseries and in television, ongoing television shows, et cetera, et cetera. I think we continue to be in kind of a renaissance, even if a lot of the stuff that's coming out right now isn't necessarily my cup of tea. For me, the problem might be somewhat correcting itself. If we get to a place where we just all know, okay, movie theaters are for theme park rides, then I guess I don't mind it as much, Dan.
Then
more the problem is the pretense, right?
Well, I mean, it's getting to the point where Disney owns so many of the big blockbuster films that come out every year. They almost have made movie theaters into Disney theme parks at this point. Like, every third movie you see is a Walt Disney Studios production. So, I mean, if they get to the point where they corner the vast majority, even more of the blockbuster film market, how long is it going to be till Disney just buys the movie theaters? And they're just like Disney theaters. And
that's not cool, and I'm not saying I want that. And I'm not saying that it's not going to suck, that it'll be more difficult to find, smaller, more intimate movies. And just movies of every sort of ilk to go see on a big screen. On the other hand, the home technology has gotten a lot better. Nobody's trying to watch these things on tiny 19-inch TVs anymore. You can get and I'm not saying it's the same thing as a movie theater experience, but even if you don't have, a really good home theater setup, even if you're not using projector screens with surround sound and stuff like I've got at my house, a lot of people have very large televisions, and very often also with surround sound or sound bars, that kind of thing, that aren't even that costly anymore. I mean, for between $500 and $1,000, you can have a pretty decent viewing experience in your house without having to go anywhere.
You can. The thing that you miss that will be lost, I think, and I understand some of the filmmakers' reservations about this. The thing that will be lost is the communal experience for non-theme park movies. Like going to see, for example, I saw the Robert Eggers movies, The Witch and The Lighthouse, in a theater, and I loved those movies. They're very small productions. A24 put them on. They're like indie horror movies, but really well made. And seeing that with a crowd, like the gasps of surprise and horror and all those kind of things, like it does affect your viewing experience to be in a communal place where you're all experiencing the same thing at the same time, like you're watching a play. I think that experience for those types of films will no longer exist if what we're talking about happens, and that does stink.
Yeah, if Disney and other large corporations are basically able to take over theaters entirely, and they just stop those kinds of things from being able to come out, that's definitely a travesty. What I would hope would happen, and of course I don't trust this with the studio system, but what you'd want to happen is just kind of a basic supply and demand thing, where the industry realizes. I mean, Ben Affleck just talked about this last week, and he had a really good interview about this that I meant to talk about on the Captain Logan show last week. You'd hope that the industry at large would come to the conclusion that he did, which is, it's not that there's not interest for these things, it's just that nobody's leaving their house to go see them, or not a lot of people are. Yeah. What you'd hope is, Dan, is that doesn't preclude those things still being available in movie theaters, just that they could be put out simultaneous, and the main the main draw would be where the money actually comes from. So it doesn't have to do a certain box office number in order to perform. You go, okay, more people are going to watch that at home, but we'll still put it in a select number of theaters, or we'll give it a wide release for, you know, a couple of weeks or whatever. But we're not going to, but like the success of that movie is not riding on box office. Like it shouldn't. It just, both things should be available, and the success of the movie should ride on wherever they know the interest is.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that is the model that some studios have pursued, which I like. Netflix specifically is one of the studios that I know of, and I think Amazon does this too, where they will sort of cater to the needs and the desires of the filmmaker. Like, for example, when Martin Scorsese made The Irishman, that movie could not get any backing by major studios because the special effects work required to make the characters look younger than they were in a lot of the film was too expensive to justify what a Martin Scorsese mob movie would take in at the box office compared to an Avengers or whatever. So Netflix bankrolled it basically because having a Martin Scorsese movie on their service and being something they produce was very good for their brand. It like increased Netflix subscribers. People are like, oh my God, like Netflix, they're actually funding things that are of quality and artsy, you know. And they released that movie in the theaters for a certain number of weeks so it could get, you know, awards consideration, all those kind of things. And Martin Scorsese really wanted that to happen. So I'd like to see things like that happen. That would be awesome.
Me too.
Like more limited release stuff.
Well, and sometimes you'll have releases where it won't be the same thing as like a wide release, but it'll be like a Fathom event or something that's like, you know, in most cities, but is only, you know, like a one-night excursion or, you know, 2 or 3 nights or whatever. Things like a couple years ago, the Breaking Bad movie did that, where it dropped on Netflix, but the same day you could go to a movie theater and see it for a Fathom event. It costs a little bit more than your average thing, but it was big screen worthy. It was worth going to. It's just that if they'd released that wide, it wouldn't have done the box office to justify it. So again, just basic supply and demand stuff. It's math, really. Like make it available, but don't ride on the big screen. Let people go see it. Just don't write everything on that. And we ought to be in okay shape, I would think, for those kinds of things. There's room for everything.
I agree.
Also, some of the big studios are more and more starting to look at what you're talking about with Netflix. Maybe I've talked about this before, but I think it's really interesting that HBO Max, after the backlash they got, and somewhat understandably from some of the studios that made movies that they distributed this year, where they said, we're going to put our whole slate out on HBO Max this year, and some of the contracts didn't warrant that, and there might have even been some litigation and stuff.
Yeah.
They've not fully backed down from it, though. Next year, they're not going to keep doing that. They are releasing things in theaters. But arguably the biggest movie that they will have, sorry, not next year. I still think we're in 2021. Arguably the biggest, or one of the biggest movies that Warner's will have this year comes out in March and is The Batman. And that movie is, as far as I understand it, going to release in theaters and then 1 month later go to HBO Max.
Yeah, I think it was like 45-day window or something like that. It's crazy.
And that movie's going to be huge. So, like, it will still be in the theater and likely for 2 or 3 more months when it becomes available. They've doubled down on this. I mean, they know that that's where a lot of the money is, and they've increased. I think they're doing that because they're trying to hang on to a lot of the new subscribers they've gotten this year from Max with the theatrical movies, because they had a huge bump, and we mentioned the number a couple weeks ago, and I can't remember exactly if it was 80 million or how many people it was, but it was a pretty good showing for HBO Max, which seemed like it might have been in trouble in the first few months of its existence.
Well, and I'm not surprised, because that is the thing that got me to subscribe to HBO Max, and it is now my favorite streaming service after being on it and using it. I would cancel.
Variety is wonderful. It's really good.
Yeah, I would cancel all of my other subscriptions by far. I love it.
Okay, so I'm going to change my plan a little bit, because we are now 38 minutes into the show. And instead of no, you're fine. That was a lovely discussion, and we probably already tackled everything anybody wanted us to talk about, Dan. In just that little miasma. So let's go ahead and start doing super chats. The lead-in topic that I had planned on actually showed up in a super chat. I want to mention the Weird Al biopic, but why don't we go ahead and start going in whatever order you choose, Dan? You're the moderator this evening. We can start there if you want to, or you can jump around, but somebody jump around. Somebody left a super chat about that, so we might as well just cover it with that super chat.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I may have missed. Oh, okay. That was a Lewis Cox super chat. We'll start with that one. It's a $5 super chat, and he says Daniel Radcliffe as Weird Al. Didn't see that.
Oh yeah, words you never thought anybody would put all together, and it gets weirder because it's Daniel Radcliffe as Weird Al for a movie to be released exclusively on, drumroll, Roku.
That's weird. I didn't even know they made movies.
Neither did anyone else. And here's the whole irony of this. I mean, there's a lot of really interesting things about this news. And again, as I alluded to earlier, I am more excited about this, Dan, than anything else that is happening, because it's just so bonkers.
Do we know who's like writing, directing, or anything like that yet?
Al is co-writing it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's why I'm excited about it. It's his project. He's doing his own biopic. I mean, it's the best. Like,
I imagine it's going to be pretty tongue-in-cheek then, if
yes.
he's like involved in the writing. Do you think they'll have musical numbers and stuff in it?
Almost certainly, right? I mean, think about how theatrical his shows are and all the costume changes and all of that. I'm sure he'll incorporate that kind of stuff in it. I mentioned this to Eric, and he was like, and I told Eric too, I was like, I don't see Radcliffe in that role, but that's why I'm excited about it, because I want to see how he even pulls that off. Can Radcliffe even sing? and then Eric goes, actually, I feel like I kind of can see it. And I'm like, he goes, because I guess he's seen Radcliffe in more stuff than I have. And I've seen him in a couple of non-Potter things, but damn, with like, there was a haunted house movie he made several years ago that I saw and liked quite a bit. Lady in Black, Woman in Black.
Oh, yeah. I think I saw the trailers for that. I don't know if I ever watched it.
That was an entertaining film. But anyway, but he goes that guy has range. Like, trust me, he'll pull it off. And I was like, okay, I'm excited to see what that is even like. But the Roku thing is ironic because let me lay this out for a second. I showed Dan Torrey for his first viewing UHF. When I was in when I was in New Hampshire to see Dan, and we got Twinkies and everything, and so Dan, you'll appreciate this now that you've seen that movie. That was one of, if not the last movies that Orion put out before they immediately went bankrupt, and it was the movie they thought would save their studio. They thought Weird Al's UHF was what was their lifeline, right? And of course that didn't work out at all. It came out in '89. It was the summer of Batman. It completely failed. And I don't remember if that came out in the summer, but it was a big year for movies, and it did not perform.
Yeah.
And you've seen it, and it's fun, but you can see why that movie did not perform. And meanwhile, you get Weird Al is shopping around, and I haven't looked. I don't know if anybody's talked about the background of this. If they shopped around everywhere, and Roku was the only place that would take it. But what I'm imagining is Weird Al and his people are shopping this around everywhere, and nobody wants it. And Roku is like, sure, we'll make that. And the irony is, it couldn't save, Weird Al couldn't save Orion, but it will be the thing that makes anybody know what Roku is. That's hilarious. I don't think Roku has any idea how popular that will be for them.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that will be relatively huge. Relatively.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense for them to get into the streaming game, especially since, you can't really buy a TV that doesn't have a Roku or an Amazon stick already implanted in it. Like my TV that I bought recently a couple of years ago is a Roku TV. Like it's either Amazon or Roku. You buy them stock in now. So, I mean, if they already have streaming devices built into everyone's televisions, why not provide content for them? You know?
Yeah. But I've never heard of one thing they've made.
No, I'm sure that they've bankrolled other things that we just haven't heard of.
Yeah, probably so.
Probably
so. But do they have a service? Like, it's going to be on Roku? There's a Roku service? Is it...
There's a Roku channel if you go on your Roku TV. Where
is it a free one?
Yes.
Is this movie going to be released for free?
I don't know if the movie's going to be free, but I know it's like one of those... it's kind of like Tubi or like one of those things where you can like download it and watch stuff for free with ads. You know what I mean?
Yeah, IMDb TV is that way.
Yes.
There's actually some good stuff on there.
Yeah.
IMDb TV is one of those streaming services that has, especially for a free service, pretty good variety. It's worth going and looking at. It has the cheapest, worst interface and player you'll ever use. And I'm putting it up against Paramount Plus when I say that. The difference is you have to pay for that nonsense.
Is Paramount Plus really bad?
It's really bad. I want to make a whole video about how bad it is.
Oh.
I'm thinking about doing that, and I also want to do a like top 10 list of streaming services, and like services that you should get and ones that you should stay away from.
Does Paramount have any original content?
I don't know if they have anything worth watching. I have not watched one original thing that I went past 2 episodes and thought was decent. I was kind of excited about the new Twilight Zone, and it got not good pretty quickly. But that is where the Halo show is going.
I know.
So we'll see how that is.
That's like what will make me subscribe to that. Like after the Halo show is all done airing its first season, I will buy a one-time entrance to Paramount Plus and watch all of it and hopefully enjoy it. I mean, I've been waiting for a Halo film something my entire video gaming life. I love Halo. I'm a big fan, so it's super exciting that it's finally happening. Because Spielberg, I remember when I was like middle school, me and my friends would like read articles about Spielberg, like coming onto the project as a producer, and like everyone was like, oh my God, Steven Spielberg's gonna make a Halo movie. It's crazy that it's finally happening. It's cool.
But real quick with the Weird Al thing, yeah, and I've never played Halo, so I can't decide if I'm going to watch that or not, because I don't know if that's going to be like a good entry point, or if it's going to be the thing like, you should only watch this if you have played the... I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I had the experience you're talking about where it like seemed kind of inaccessible with the Witcher show. Like, I've played those games, but I'm not like super... I don't love them as much as everyone else seems to. I think they're fine games, but I like many other RPGs much more. So I'm not like super invested in like the world or the lore, really. And I tried to watch that show, and I was just like bored. And I turned like the first episode off before it was finished. I couldn't get through it.
I forgot. I've been seeing a lot of ads for that, and I forgot The Witcher was even a video game series until you said. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That's what that is. It seems like that's becoming the new big ticket thing for streaming services, is like try video game franchises. See if that were like Amazon's doing Last of Us, I think, and
yes,
I think it's Amazon.
It might be. I'm not sure. I know they're doing a Fallout show, which is exciting.
Oh, I didn't know that, and you're a huge fan of that.
Yeah, I love Fallout. So,
I bought New Vegas finally, but I haven't played it yet.
Nice.
That was the one I always thought looked cool, so I bought it. But
New Vegas is the best one, I think.
No, even still, because I know you played. What was the one you would not shut up about when it came out? I can't remember now. Yes, yeah, just all the time. That's all you did for like 9 months was play Fallout 4.
I love Bethesda games. I'm a huge fanboy of their stuff. I love Elder Scrolls. I love Fallout. I'm excited for their new Starfield game. That game looks awesome. So yeah, no, I loved Fallout 4 because it was set in Boston too. So that was like a big thing for me because like it's just places and towns around Boston that I like know very well. So it was cool to see like the post-apocalyptic Fallout version of those places.
But yeah, real quick, Eric, when we were talking about the Weird Al thing, was like what it should. He's right about this. He was like, what it should be is like a parody of the Elton John biopic, where we're using Weird Al songs to like narrate like major scenes of his life. We're like, you know, things happen like inside of his own head and stuff. Like that's what that should be, and I hope that's what it is.
That'd be awesome.
He had a great quote when this news dropped, where he said, "When we made UHF, I said that this is the most Al thing ever." He goes, "I said that we would make a new movie every 33 years, and so far we're right on track."
That's awesome.
I love Al. I love him so much. So yeah, I'm stoked for that. I'm as excited about that. I'm as excited about that as I am the Batman. I can't say more so, but everything else I'm more excited about this than I am anything else.
And that Batman movie looks really good.
Looks really good.
Yeah, that new trailer they put out, like, I was very impressed by the first one, but the second, like, the newest one they put out, like, the Cat and the Bat trailer, I think they called it. It's got all the Catwoman stuff in it. It's really cool.
It's really cool. Okay, let's get to some super chats.
Yes. So that was Lewis Cox's one about Weird Al.
Yes, sir.
So I'll start back at the beginning of the show, and we'll go in order because that's the way I wrote them. So the first one is from Tom, and he asks,
"Hi, Tom.
If you could take any story and adapt it to any different time or setting, what would it be? Example, Treasure Planet, Star Trek in the 1500s, Spider-Man but in England instead of New York. Great show tonight."
Hey, thanks. Tom always has a lot of faith in us because he'll say great show before we've started broadcasting.
Yeah.
Really nice of him. So this is sort of like the Marvel 1602 thing.
Yes, it is.
I realize that was technically in continuity, and I've never understood how that works. But besides that, I'm gonna say the first thing that comes to my mind is the Matrix in the like earliest days of the internet, and like it's already pretty early, but like the Matrix in like 1984 when the internet was only used by the military, and like it's all dial-up but nobody has it. Like,
no, that's awesome.
what would you pick?
Let's see.
Pick a property and put it in a different time period.
I think it would be cool to do... I mean, they've probably already done this at some point, but I think it would be kind of cool to take the Marvel universe and do it like an American Western setting, like right after the Civil War or something. I'm sure there's some alternate continuity where that already exists, but I think it would be cool to see... especially characters like the Punisher would fit into a world like that. I think Daredevil would be a cool character to set in the Old West. There's a bunch of them I think would be well suited to that kind of stuff. So yeah, thank you for the question, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
The next question is from Logan Dodd, and he asks, how did Denis Villeneuve get Rendezvous with Rama greenlit, and why isn't Warner Brothers giving us another Cavill Superman movie?
Okay, so I don't know about that project, so I'm in the dark on this. I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, I know it's a science fiction novel, but I don't know anything about the novel, and I haven't heard anything other than the fact that Villeneuve is making it. I think he's a great director, so I mean that's exciting that he's working on something that he's passionate about, because I've liked every movie I've seen that he's made so far.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, he's quickly becoming a lot of people's new favorite director. And I imagine he's just getting a lot of clout, critically, like even when his movies don't perform like huge guns, I think it's pretty clear to the studio that a lot of that is his stuff is kind of difficult to advertise, and it's not necessarily like the most accessible stuff in the world. It's not for everybody, I mean, and like it's cool that they're letting him make that stuff anyway. It's crazy that they gave him an even more massively huge movie out after 2049, when like that movie didn't do huge numbers, and I don't know why they thought it might, but it's really nice they didn't just write him off after that. And my guess is, and who knows, but he just seems like one of those guys that maybe he's just really easy to work with, and they just keep wanting to give him stuff because he's an easy director to work with. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, whatever magic he's working on the Hollywood executives, I totally support it, because I mean, I was blown away by that Dune movie he made, and I'm very excited for the second one. Like, that movie was awesome.
I just wish they'd have the same attitude with, you know, people that they pick for DC projects. You know, I wish that stuff wasn't as high profile.
Yeah. It would be so interesting to see Villeneuve do Villeneuve. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but it would be cool to see him do like a superhero thing. I bet it would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like what the best pick for him would be. I use this for too many things, but the first place my brain goes is when Batman Beyond finally gets made, he's the guy, right? Like clearly he's the guy for that.
No, especially since he made a Blade Runner movie. I could see him like maybe doing a cool Green Lantern movie if we're talking about like sci-fi stuff too. I feel like he would do like a sci-fi epic that isn't like, you know, what's his name? Ryan Reynolds, like having fun with Taika Waititi. Like, it'll be a space epic movie, you know?
Yeah, him on Green Lantern would make a lot of sense, but him on Superman would also make a lot of sense. Especially if it was really Krypton heavy. And, you know, that's all I've ever wanted is a great Krypton movie. And then we got a whole Krypton TV show that was... I don't even know how to describe that.
Oh, man.
That was nuts.
But, that's such a cool idea, because I love the Krypton stuff in Man of Steel. Like, that stuff is all visually really cool.
It is.
And
it's the last 15 minutes of the movie I wish they'd made.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Somebody in the comment... Oh, Daniel Davis in the comments said that most of his movies outside of 2049 have done well.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I liked Arrival a lot. That was a great one. All right. So next question is from Tom, and I don't know what it means, but I'm going to ask it anyway because he paid us money.
That happens. Yeah, it's okay. Good.
Will there be Way, Wango, or Google Cards LOL?
He is making fun of me for making a mistake in a Friends quote I did last week.
Oh.
Because it was late and I was tired and I said it wrong. And the answer is no, there won't be. It won't be. My game show will not be quite as convoluted as the made-up game show in that Great Friends episode. I love that episode. It's really funny. It's like Joey is going out for a game show host position, and they give him all the rules to this game, and so he's getting Chandler and Ross to play it with him to do a demo of it, and they start playing it, and the rules are just all over the place. It's like Fizbin and Star Trek TOS. It's like just a bunch of nonsense. Like, what is all? And there's like wheels you have to spin, and there's the wacky Wango card, and that's what he's talking about. And then there's another subplot that's less interesting that it keeps jumping back and forth to in the episode. But eventually, you cut back to them all playing that, and suddenly Chandler and Ross are like really into it, and it's like the best game ever, and it's really funny. And then at the end, Joey goes in to do the audition, and they've done tests and studies. And the audiences that they tried the game on thought that it was too complicated, and so they axed everything out of it that he was having to practice, and it becomes just a basic question and answer show, which is the kind of thing obviously that happens on TV all the time. And I thought it was really fun that they did that.
That's awesome.
And then he's like, well, hey, you got rid of all the stuff that's great about this game, and I don't really want to be involved in it if you're not going to have that. And then I think what happens is they tell him how much he'd get paid as the host, and then the next line is, let's get ready to play Bamboozled. And it's great.
That's awesome. All right, so thank you for your joke, Tom.
It's almost as funny as I'm talking about Friends. It's almost as funny as the Joey episode where he is playing Chandler's Dumb States game.
Oh, I've seen that.
Have you seen that one?
Yeah,
where it's Thanksgiving and they have to name. It's like, I don't know, season 7 or 8, and they have to try to name as many states as possible in a certain amount of time. And Joey's making fun of everybody because he came up with more than them, 56 states.
Yeah. He names like cities. He's like, they have a football team.
Yeah, and he's like, and there's one where he's like, oh yeah, like North Carolina's a state.
Oh, that show's funny. All right, so next question is from Bob the Hun, and he doesn't ask. This is a statement. He says,
you can make those.
Whedon finally responded to his controversies.
He did.
So
that did happen.
Just to talk about that, if I'm interpreting his.
Did you read about any of that?
A little bit. I know about like the allegations that were brought against him for the Justice League set, and I know, and the Buffy stuff, and I know that he basically said none of that happened. So I mean,
yeah, he didn't really cop to anything. As I've always said, I don't really want to come onto the show and do a lot of like gossip and rumor and stuff. Like, it's all hearsay. It's all he said, she said. Like, who knows who's right in a lot of those situations, and how extreme some of the things were that he apparently did. Like, from his position, there were things that he said that were kind of just said sarcastically or whatever, that people took seriously, that he didn't mean that way, is what he claims, that sort of thing. Yeah. I don't know. It's really a who do you believe sort of situation. I understand why there's a lot of people saying there's over the years, there have been so many claims of, at the very least, kind of like uncouth and unprofessional behavior that, you pile it all up, and it does seem like he's just deflecting and, not copping to things that he probably really did. I don't know. I wasn't there. It's hard to really have an opinion about it. But I think it's interesting that and I didn't read the entire interview, but I read excerpts of it, and the places where the interviewer brought up like women that he slept with and what he did to his wife and stuff, he would just straight out say, yeah, that was awful and I treated her horribly. But there was, I don't know, there was something like less apologetic in all of it than you kind of would have expected, especially given, at least for the sake of like being diplomatic and maybe wanting to work again, that I was kind of surprised by just how much he doubled down. I'm not saying that like I'm necessarily for like apology tours and that kind of thing. Like, if he's not sorry, maybe he shouldn't say he's sorry. But I was a little surprised that this long after all of that, when he finally agrees to talk about it, his attitude was as it is. I'm not saying how exactly I think he should have taken it, because I don't know. But I'm saying I was a little bit surprised. It's not the way I thought he would handle it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I expected him to just like not really say anything about it at all.
I'm uncomfortable with this, by the way. I'm not sure what to say about this kind of stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean.
Oh no, go right ahead. I'm not sure what my opinion is on this.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I mean, I tend to think like, whatever happened between them, it seems like there are enough people coming out saying they had negative experiences with him that he's at the very least like very difficult to work with and made people uncomfortable while they were working, which is not good or acceptable. So, I mean, even if people are exaggerating, I think like it seems to me that like there's something about working with that guy that like rubs people the wrong way. And I hope that if those things really did happen, which, I don't have any reason to think that they didn't, but I don't know. I hope that those people, like, are okay, and they find a way to move past those things eventually. But it's tough. I mean, being in a situation where you feel uncomfortable at work is, like, I think something many of us have felt. And it's not good, because you feel like, this is your livelihood. You can't leave. It puts you in a very awkward and difficult position. So I just feel for anyone that was put in that position that it can't be fun.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. It's and this might come off as sort of like a cry me a river kind of statement, because if some of those allegations are true, like, at least I didn't have to be a victim of it or whatever. But it does suck when things like that. I'm not putting this in the same category, obviously. This is not exactly a Me Too kind of situation, but, like, when something like this happens, or Cosby or whatever, it's really unfortunate that people who you might creatively be very inspired by, and who creatively might be a hero of yours, end up with this kind of reputation that seems to have a grain of truth, or more than a grain of truth, or is entirely true. And you, of course, have to separate the art from the man. But I mean, Whedon was a huge inspiration and influence on me with a lot of different projects. And you always have kind of a rose-tinted glasses way of imagining a person that you look up to, again, even if just creatively, where you're like, you hope that's that's a good guy, and you imagine it's the sort of person that it must have been really fun to work with. Look at the kinds of things he made. How could the guy who did Firefly and Buffy not be fun to hang out with? And also, he kind of created this reputation of, like, making families with his crews and with his actors. And I mean, a bunch of his alum all came together and made a Shakespeare movie at his house. And when you have that kind of relationship with people, it's hard to think anything but he must be a great guy. It turns out maybe he's not. And I've said this before, and I don't mind going on record with this again. The Cosby thing was absolutely devastating to me. Was like a world breaking, I don't know if I can trust anybody ever again kind of moment. And this isn't on, and make fun of me if you want to. That's how I felt about it. And if you and this is not necessarily to that same level, but it's a little bit of one of those. If somebody ever finds the evidence that, like, it turns out that Fred Rogers was a wife beater or something, I'm out. I'm done. That's it. You know what I mean? I'm never working in anywhere around entertainment and movie criticism ever again. If I find that out, it's just like, more and more of these things coming out. It hurts your feelings. It makes it difficult not to get a little bit cynical. And the way I stay as positive as I can is just to remember that everybody's human, and that you don't actually know these people personally. And it doesn't help to get paranoid about it, of course, but you also don't want to idealize people. You got to find that line between everyone must be a scumbag and nobody's perfect.
Well, yeah, and I think Whedon didn't really do themselves any favors in that regard. I think, he didn't just cultivate like you said, a long-term working relationship with the actors. I think he did that with the audience too. I mean, he cultivated the reputation as being, like, the big champion of, like, Hollywood feminism, of comic books, of all those kind of things. I mean, I'm not a big Whedon, like, film person, but I love his X-Men run. Like, it's one of my favorite Marvel comics ever written. It's wonderful. So to see that kind of thing happen to him, it is really disappointing. But he cultivated an image for himself of being, like, the good guy. It's not like people just came to that conclusion, like, on its own. He was very crafty in cultivating his public image and his audience and all those kind of things. So,
and he didn't have to be as public as he was.
No,
most writers and directors aren't.
Yeah,
I mean, there are a few, certainly, but you're right. I mean, he wanted that kind of fame, clearly.
Yeah,
he put himself in that sort of limelight. it seems, and this is coming from the horse's mouth, even this is from him, and some people have said that this is him kind of playing the victim or whatever. But the reason he says that he cheated on his wife with people he worked with and stuff like that, I don't like talking about this stuff, is because he suddenly got famous and popular and women wanted to be with him, and he was an outcast in high school and stuff, and so it was difficult to resist that, is what he said. And it seems like the motivation for that must have been, not to psychoanalyze the guy, but must have been to some degree some of the motivation of why he would, is you alluded to, put himself in the limelight.
Yeah, no,
you know,
I mean,
like now people care about him.
Yeah, definitely.
And I do have to say, I think a lot of us can sympathize with that to some degree. It doesn't condone things he might have done that he shouldn't have done.
Well, when you really think about it, I think there's a large degree of that in like people that are even major Hollywood actors. I mean, most of these people that are really skilled actors were like theater kids in high school. You know, the theater kids are not like the cool kids in high school. So like, you know, I think a lot of people go to Hollywood to be famous, and maybe that's part of their motivation as well. You know, I think that's definitely a factor for sure. But would you like to hear John Ty's next question?
Yeah, I think we should go ahead and move on. We are about 10 minutes after the hour. Dan, before we get to that, would you mind letting us know how many Super Chats do we have left as of this moment? Let's see how we're tracking here.
So including John Ty's, we have 8 left.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and do this one, and then go to a couple of pre-writtens, maybe, since we haven't really covered any of those tonight.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so John Ty says, would you want the responsibility of being a superhero, or would the responsibility be too much for you?
Why don't you field it first, Dan?
I would not want to be a superhero because their lives are all awful. But yeah, I mean, it's not really like a question of, I guess, responsibility for me in the way that I think about it, I suppose. It like just the danger that you would put yourself in and the people you love like that would be very difficult for me to get over in being one. What do you think?
So when I was younger, I had a real idealized way of looking at what a real world vigilante might be like, where like, you know, obviously I understood the notion of it's violent, you could get hurt, you could get killed, if your arch nemesis or whoever found out who you were, your family would be in trouble, etc., etc., and you wouldn't want to deal with all of that. But I have a kind of natural like outgoing personality, but also kind of, I don't know, I have at times been able to fall into vanity a little bit. I always just imagined how much fun it would be doing the, like, you know, running across the rooftops thing, and the just the aesthetic of the whole thing, and the mystique of the whole thing. Vanity is not the right word, I guess, but just the the idea, I guess. It, like, you know, when I was most thinking about this as a kid, you know, like 12, 13, even into, like, you know, high school age, just the mystique of it and how important you would feel. So like at one time that idea certainly appealed to me. But the practicality of it is not there, obviously. First of all, I never would have been, you know, tall, strong, or smart enough to pull that off. Like, I just never would have been smart to even attempt a thing like that. So even if I had superpowers, I'd be like, okay, but I don't have any sense of direction. So I don't really know if you should be a superhero if you have to rely on Google Maps to get around.
Yeah, you definitely need to be a tech-based guy. Have one of those, you know, lens helmets that you can see stuff and can help you navigate.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want to be the guy in the chair. I'd be like, you're right. No, I'm sorry, I meant left. Which way is east? I don't know.
Who knows? All
but
right.
yeah, so no, I like practically, I certainly wouldn't actually ultimately want that, but there's a romanticization, certainly.
No, and I think, like, when I was a kid, I kind of felt the same way. Before, like, I guess when I was a kid and, like, wanting to do those things, like you said, I didn't really consider what the consequences of doing that would be. It was just like, wouldn't it be cool to punch bad guys and wear a cape?
I sympathized massively in Hawkeye with Kate Bishop. I think she has a really like realistic young person's response to that, living in a world of a lot of superheroes. And it was nice to see, not just a young superhero that ultimately would have a secret identity that's not Spider-Man, because we haven't had much of that yet in MCU. I guess more and more we're probably going to start getting that. But it was nice seeing a real down-to-earth Eisen character who was responding directly to like decade plus history, I guess 15 now with the blip, but like, decade plus history of superheroes. Like, you would be thinking about a lot more if you lived in a world where there were a bunch of those. And also if you were somebody who really did have the skill set for that and who was, inspired directly by a superhero, you'd have more reasons to actually really want to do that. And just the way that show lays out the pros and cons to her of like she is idealistic but not insanely naive. Like, she gets both sides of it but leans more toward wanting to actually do that job, even understanding the risks, and you buy it. Like, I'm just reviewing that show now, but god, do I love that character.
That's awesome.
Like, a lot.
Yeah, no. I heard a lot of people say that they really loved that show. I'm glad that people ended up enjoying it. I haven't watched it, but that was one that I was initially looking forward to when they announced it.
Just like with every other Disney Plus show, there are things about the ending that they do not stick the landing of. But the relationship with her and Clint is wonderful all the way through. I think that arc is awesome and tracks all the way through and is wonderful. The bad guy stuff, the crime drama stuff is really
yeah.
But she's
I've heard
wonderful.
Things about one of my favorite people that disappoints me about that show.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't want to get into spoilers with that, so I won't mention it. But yes, I finally finished it last night, and that whole thing sucks. Just straight up. It's bad.
Yeah.
It's just bad.
I couldn't believe the costume that they used for one of my favorite people, because it's from a very obscure, like, OGN that Marvel put out.
And doesn't fit that version at all.
Strange. Yeah. But anyway, enough vague.
I have so many things I want to say about that, but we'd have to get cryptic to the point of absurdity, so we better move on.
Yeah. All right. So you said you wanted to do some pre-writtens now?
Yeah. Could you?
Yes. All right. So Daniel Davis asked, if you killed off a character permanently in the comics, who would it be?
Wow. Because we just don't like them, or because it would be great drama? Or because it's somebody that got brought back that shouldn't have? Because we could do that all day long, right? We could be like,
yeah.
Well, let's permanently kill off Gwen Stacy. You're never allowed to do that besides Spider-Gwen ever again. Or let's kill off Jean Grey again and make it stick forever. I don't know.
Because Emma Frost is awesome.
Do you have a great answer to this right away? There's so many motivations. The thing you have to keep in mind is all of the different motivations for murder.
Yes.
You're asking us to kill someone, and we have to decide the motivation first, Dan.
Let's see. I mean, there are characters I don't like that I would kill off just to, never have to see them grace the pages of a comic book again. But I mean, I don't know if that's a good answer to this question. Like, Deadpool is one of the ones that's like that for me. Like, I hate that character, and like,
I know
if
you
he
do.
showed up in a comic book ever again, I would be very happy. If I could do it in the movies, I would do it with Hulk and Thor, because those characters are ruined beyond repair, and seeing them in things just makes me sad now. So yeah, I guess those are my three answers.
A lot of the characters that I want to kill just because I don't like them are characters we're not really using all that much anymore. So it seems like we've pretty much done that. Like the big one back during the New 52 days would have been Joker's daughter. Good God.
Yeah.
Ugh.
The Joker exactly 0 family members. Like exactly 0.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, when you get into just characters that should stay dead, or where it's a supporting character where it's more interesting if the character is dead. Like, I would have said several years ago, I would have said this with Aunt May, actually, Dan. So, like, that's a character that we should just kill and leave dead, because we need to let just be, for the most part, because it would motivate Peter Parker in interesting ways, but also because that's a character that we need to allow to change and grow and get older and all of that. And I think we've done that now, right? I mean, I'm sure they'll bring her back if we haven't, but it's been 3 years since I read Enya Spencer, and he's off the book now, I think. And I don't know. I'm not reading new comics at the moment, so I'm not sure what's happening there. But
they seem to kill off Aunt May every like decade or two now. Like since she was killed the first time in the 90s. JMS killed her. I don't think Dan Slott killed her. Did Spencer kill her in his run?
I thought so, but maybe not. I haven't read past the 3rd or 4th arc.
Yeah,
so maybe
I read
not.
The Raven arc in the collections, but I haven't read past that point yet. So
I think it's around where I was too. Yeah, and that's pretty early. He was on a lot longer than that. But
so, yeah, I mean that would be a good one for sure. Yeah, there's quite a few supporting characters, I think, that I would probably like to keep dead.
Yeah, exactly.
I would like Damian to go away. When he died the first time, I was like, good, we'll be able to get like a Robin.
And that lasted less time than it usually does, and I don't know why we even bothered. That was weird. Flashpoint Thomas Wayne Batman.
Oh, you don't like him?
No, I do like him. It's just weird that he keeps coming back. Like, I didn't really care for his inclusion in the Tom King stuff. Like, when he showed up initially, it was kind of interesting, but then he just kept coming back, and he was connected to the Bane plot and all that. And I thought it was really convoluted, and I didn't need all that.
That's weird.
Yeah, and because it felt like that kind of obligatory. I don't know, typical kind of thing where, well, it's popular, so we have to contrive some way to get it in there. It just seemed real gimmicky.
Yeah, no, that does sound super gimmicky, and like having main continuity Batman interact with an alternate universe version of his like superhero father is like the most fanficky thing in the entire world.
Can I answer a personal question real quick?
Yes.
Devin Rockatansky wants to know if I would get laser eye surgery. And my answer to that is probably not, unless I could get surgery that would only correct my nearsightedness. Because the reason I wanted to answer this is because over the years I have been told by more than one doctor, and over the span of like 15 years or something, Dan, like apparently the technology has not changed well enough for this to be different. I've been told that there's a surgery that can be done to correct my lazy eye. I have, for those of you that don't know, I have a lazy eye. When I was a baby, I had surgery at 13 months old to correct cross-eyedness. And, babies are born cross-eyed, and then most of them, that changes. Mine didn't. I just stayed cross-eyed for 13 months. And probably explains things. I don't know. And then I had surgery done to correct that, and it was partially successful. So my eyes are not crossed, but I have a lazy eye, and it's because of a somewhat botched surgery. I've been told that there is a surgery that would potentially correct that, but there is a 50-50 shot that I would wake up with complete double vision.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So not doing that.
What? Wow.
Yeah, isn't that nuts?
Yeah, that is crazy.
So that's why I wanted to answer that.
That's happened to, geez.
Wow. Yeah. Wouldn't be able to drive anymore. That's for sure.
I know. So we keep getting more super chats.
Let's go ahead and get back to those then.
Okay. Logan Dodd, how ugly is Batgirl's movie costume?
Well, your question is making something of an assumption of my opinion of that. Maybe I'm an outlier. I don't know what the consensus is. I haven't talked to anybody but Austin about this. Not at all. For my book, I think it looks great, actually. I
too.
I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah.
And didn't think I would be, because when they announced that project, I was like, you know what they're going to do? They're going to go to that that rebirth suit that everybody was, or was it end of New 52 and Rebirth? I can't remember. But that suit that with the younger Barbara Gordon that everybody was obsessed with the buttons and all of that, and like it's okay, but it's not my Batwoman suit or my Batgirl suit. I prefer something closer to, the old school purple and yellow that started in the 60s show, and then just like the Robin costume was, tweaked to be more modern as we went along. And they did go with a suit that is inspired by that to some degree, but it looks like a cross between them to me, where it's more like the traditional Batgirl cowl, and then it's got the yellow on the inside of the cape, and I think it actually looks kind of boss. Honestly, yeah. I'm sort of excited about what it looks like.
I really like Barbara Gordon as a character in general. I like Batgirl quite a bit, so I mean, I hope that movie's good. I mean, I don't know how much faith I have in it being good.
But same here.
I hope it is. That would be awesome.
Well, we did. I did my top 10 favorite superheroes last week, and Barbara Gordon was on that list. And obviously, I want this to be wonderful. It is still, if what I've read is true, it is still really bizarre to me, because I didn't realize this until last week, that is the second movie that Michael Keaton is going to be in past Flash as Batman again, and it's not a theatrical release. It's an HBO Max only release, but Keaton's in it.
Yeah,
is that weird? That's weird, right?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that means that hopefully it doesn't mean that it's like a movie that they're just dumping on their streaming service because it's not turning out well, but I guess we'll see.
Oh, weird. Bob the Hun says people hate the Batgirl costume, trending on Twitter. I mean, Twitter's whatever. Bob the Hun, it was mocked for looking like a Halloween costume. I don't agree with that at all. I think it looks fine. I like that it. So what do they want? Something like ultra armored? I like that it looks like a comic book costume.
I agree.
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit TV show like Titans and stuff, but one of the only things that show gets right sometimes is costumes.
Yeah, no, I think it looks fine.
I say that having watched 2 episodes. Okay, maybe that show gets great, but I don't like it.
All right,
shut up, Dan. You know you wake up every morning and say that.
I do. The next question is from, in all caps, I have a daughter. How okay is it for me to break the law?
I love it so much. I hope I Have a Daughter continues to call him herself I Have a Daughter. That is what entirely, according to Spider-Man 3. It is entirely okay for you to break the law because you have a daughter.
Yep.
And it also makes it okay to make it so that everybody has to go back to their own dimensions before they're ready to do that, because you've got to get back to your dimension.
And you're not a bad person.
I'm not a bad person.
All right. Next question is from Louis Cax. And he said, hey, Cap and Dan, what are your thoughts on Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard?
Dan, you field this, because I've not looked into it. I know what happened, and I know they bought it for an absurd amount of money, and I think it's weird that some things that used to be PlayStation exclusives will now be Xbox exclusives. That's very weird. But that's all I know about it, so go right ahead.
Yeah, so Microsoft's throwing around Batman billionaire villain money, buying up one of the most valuable game companies in the world.
They're like, Disney, I'll see your Fox and raise you Activision.
Yeah, see, like I'm a very casual like Call of Duty fan. I played a lot of the like older games before they were like mega popular. Like the last one that I played that I really loved with like my friends online and stuff was the fifth one, which was a World War II one. But I played four and the ones before that too, and I've played some of the later ones here and there, but I'm more selective because there's a new one every year, like those sports games, and I can't afford to buy the $60 game like every year. That's like just Call of Duty. But anyway, I'm a big Warcraft fan. Like the Blizzard stuff is the most important thing to me in terms of this Activision buyout stuff. I think it would be cool if Microsoft took some of the Blizzard IP, like Warcraft, like StarCraft, like Diablo, and did like some other things with them. I think that would be cool potentially. But at the same time, it's like just more consolidation, like we see in every industry. It's like, the amount of people that are able to produce these massively budgeted things is just becoming smaller and smaller, and it just seems like it's going to get to the point where PlayStation or Xbox or Nintendo or whoever is going to own their slice of the industry, and that'll be a closed ecosystem. Then it'll be like the streaming service wars, like you have to go to Xbox Game Pass to play Call of Duty, or you have to go to PlayStation to play their Game Pass equivalent competitor services to play that, whatever it is. So I mean, I don't know. I have very mixed feelings about it. I think it's probably a good thing for Xbox as a company, but how good it is for the industry at large, I don't know. I mean, the ramifications of the Bethesda deal remain to be seen. Um, I mean, I was excited that Microsoft bought Bethesda because I thought that was an acquisition that made a lot of sense given the history between the two companies, and I thought that Bethesda has always had a problem where they're just like always like almost about to go bankrupt and like have a lot of problems like with the precision of their coding. Like their games are very buggy when they came out, so I thought like them being acquired by a company like Microsoft could inject some resources into them and make them live up to the potential of their ambitious ideas. Not that their games are great already, but even more so. But this is just like a whole different beast. I mean, Activision Blizzard is probably the biggest third party publisher in the industry. It's like someone buying Electronic Arts, like it's huge. So I guess
For
we'll
that
see.
industry, it's as big as the Fox thing.
Yes,
Like it really is.
Yes,
And
it's
also, I shouldn't even say for that industry because the video game industry brings in more money than the movie industry does. You're talking about technically a bigger. Well, I don't think Disney spent that much money on Fox, did they? I actually don't know what that acquisition was, but was it 68? Did I read that right? That it was $68 billion?
Yeah, it's almost 70 billion.
See, I assumed I must have just read that number wrong, because that when you start getting into that kind of stratosphere, like I don't know, like call me a doomsayer or whatever, but and I know that word has a different connotation on this channel for some people, but that's I'm not talking about doomsayers right now. But call me a doomsayer, but like that kind of thing kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Well,
the consolidation thing you're talking about, that there's anybody big enough to spend $68 billion to acquire a company.
Yeah, it's crazy, and one of the things that I think will be an advantage to Microsoft as a corporation in competing in the gaming space is they are by far the most profitable company of any of the big three. Like Nintendo just makes video games. The only division of Sony that's profitable is the PlayStation. Microsoft is an entirely different animal. So they have enough capital to throw around to basically like buy whatever they want if the CEO is on board, and like the leadership at Microsoft is very much interested in creating the Netflix of video games and making Xbox the ecosystem that becomes synonymous with playing games because everyone has it. Even if they use other services, it like Netflix is synonymous with the streaming video services. Like,
and they're pushing so hard toward cloud gaming. It's all going that way. Like obviously.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Xbox already made a deal. What they're going to do is they're developing technology. It's already been patented. They're working on it. These little streaming chips they're going to put in TVs like Roku's that come standard on smart TVs, and it comes with an Xbox controller, so you can play Xbox games right out of the box with a TV. You don't need a console through their xCloud streaming gaming service. And Microsoft is a company that has pioneered a lot of this cloud technology, so it's not going to be a crappy service like Google Stadia or something. Like when they do it, they're going to do it right. So I mean, that I think that has a large possibility of succeeding.
I heard actually Stadia worked pretty well and was pretty stable, and the problem was just they didn't put the right games on it, and a lot of people
in their business
couldn't
model.
use it. Yeah, it was just a bad business model. But I heard that the actual technology and the software was solid.
Yeah, I heard some problems depending on the game
But
that
I
you
didn't
played. But
use it, so I don't know.
yeah, I didn't use it either, so I don't know. But I just don't think that Microsoft's effort at that will flop the way that other companies that have tried to get into it have, because Xbox has that established like brand that people know it is associated with quality. It's not like Google, a company that does search engines. Oh, we have a video game console. What chances does that have of
Good
catching
point. Yeah, they needed to partner with somebody for that.
Yeah, same thing with Amazon has a gaming streaming service. I think it's called Amazon Luna, and that one is similar to Stadia, but like not as it didn't fail as spectacularly because they didn't invest as much money in it. There's way less content on it, that kind of thing. So,
but I mean, there's still probably only 9 people using it, right?
yeah, and I mean, if Microsoft's initiatives with this all succeed, I mean, and Sony doesn't adjust, I mean, they're going to be left in the dust in the way that Nintendo has been left in the dust graphically.
I completely agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Well, and I think it could get to the point where Sony's just not like their video game side, even though that's the only thing that's profitable, won't even really be viable anymore, because if you can buy a TV with a thing built into it and a lot of the games anybody cares about are there, I don't know that you can compete with a console after that. And the only reason Nintendo would be able to continue to compete at all is because of IPs they own that they're never going to let anybody else use on anything. But on the other hand, I don't know that now that I'm thinking about it, I forgot, because Microsoft and Nintendo are real chummy right now, and they're starting to do projects together. And
Yes.
I guess you'll probably get to a point where Nintendo won't need a console either, because they'll probably just publish things for the thing that Microsoft's building into TVs, right?
I think so. If not, someone buys Nintendo outright. I think that could definitely happen in the future. Because Nintendo, like the Switch is really popular, but Nintendo's business model, even now, of building a dedicated handheld piece of technology just for video games is becoming obsolete. Everyone wants to play portably games on their phones. Microsoft already allows you the ability to do that through their xCloud gaming series. I can play my Series X games on my phone if I want to,
Which is nuts.
which is insane. You know, not that I would ever really want to be honest. But
I don't
like,
get why people want that. The screen's too small. I can see wanting
Yeah.
to be able to do it on a tablet.
Yeah, and it works on any of that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it's nuts.
And I mean, most tablet screens are far larger than a Switch. Like, that's going to get obsolete pretty damn fast.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, the only thing that Nintendo really has going for them is their IP. I mean, they don't have the same production value as even some of the third-party studios in terms of graphics and stuff like that. I love their games. Don't get me wrong. I think Nintendo is one of the most creative.
No, and hardcore Nintendo fans just don't care about that. But
Yeah,
they're also all getting older, and I don't know
They are.
how many younger people are on that bandwagon with those of us that grew up with that. So, like, when does that go away? You know?
yeah. And I think Nintendo's strategy will probably be, if this Mario movie is successful, making their IP relevant and popular through other media, and bringing people into the games that way, which I think is potentially really smart. Because Nintendo's IP is iconic, and everyone has always wanted to see films and television shows based on Zelda, Metroid, Mario, all of those things. Like every video game fan has at least, I don't care what console you play on, you have one Nintendo property that you love some of their games of that you would love to see. I mean,
Yeah.
every person who's a gamer has that. I think, you know.
I agree. Real quick before we move on, earlier you made me laugh, and I have to share this. A few minutes ago, I can't remember what the sentence was, but you started to say Microsoft is, and you had a big long pause, and you kept going. I just want you to stop there where we cast Microsoft as Darkseid. Is Microsoft is. I've said for a long time that eventually it's going to come. We're talking about consolidation and stuff, and the game of risk that these corporations are playing right now, and that it'll come down between two companies that will literally maybe even own the world, and it will be Disney and Amazon. Microsoft's that third. If there is a third one, Microsoft is that third one, and it's going to be really scary and crazy the day that you see Disney by Warner Brothers and the day you see Microsoft by Apple, and I think both of those things are possible, and I think it's not a mad thing to say. 20 years ago, those would have sounded like crazy talking points. It's not now, right? Like you can see it. The day can and probably will come where those things happen.
I think it'll get to the point if something isn't done about bringing back the willingness and ability of the government to rein in monopolies. I think we're going to go back to the point of like the Gilded Age in the 1920s, where you see like one company own entire industries. I don't know. Some mega corporations like Amazon, maybe they'll be involved in every aspect of your life if it gets that bad. But I think like Disney, for example, will own every aspect of the filmmaking process, every aspect of the distribution, every aspect of the viewing experience, that kind of thing. Like they'll own producing the movies, they'll own the movie theaters, they'll own the streaming service or the physical copies or whatever, like home distribution. Maybe they'll start making TVs or something. I don't know. But I could definitely see them at least owning like a movie theater chain, like we talked about before.
And Amazon will still be on the top of all of that, because while you have Disney in charge of the majority of we're just sounding really post-apocalyptic right now. When you get dystopian, when you have Disney owning the majority of viewing media, and you have Microsoft owning the majority of gaming media, and also computers and that sort of technology and stuff. Amazon bought grocery stores, man. Like,
yep.
They've got a little bit of everything, or they've got a lot of everything.
Yeah, no, it's really insane with all that stuff. So, I mean, that's a roundabout way of saying we have a lot of mixed feelings on this. I think this acquisition and what it means.
Yeah, the only reason I said I didn't have a whole lot to say was because I hadn't looked into it beyond that it happened. But yeah,
right.
Freaks me out a little bit, certainly, just knowing that happened. But I want to thank everybody so much for tuning into our very lighthearted and hopeful program. And now for something completely different. Dan, what else do folks want to talk about, sir?
So we got a super chat from Tom, and he is ironically informing us of another acquisition. He said Roku bought Quibi.
Oh, he mentioned that because earlier we were talking about Roku trying to figure out if they were a streaming service and where exactly that would go. I don't know what Quibi even is.
Yes. Quibi. So Quibi was this really dumb streaming service where they would make like 11-minute episodes of things meant to be watched.
Oh, I forgot that's what that was called, and they were pushing that to right before COVID happened.
Oh yeah, that crashed and burned like super hard. Like people want to watch like 2-minute videos on their phones. Like I don't understand why anyone thinks that you would want to watch a TV episode on your phone. It's very strange. I don't get it. So let's see. Next question is from Checkers the Inventor.
Checkers the Inventor, who will be with us tomorrow night as one of our contestants going head-to-head against Austin the Day Ghost.
I really liked his submission video. I liked pretty much everybody's submissions videos, but his really stood out to me. I think he'll be a good contestant. So anyway,
I'm excited to meet him and Thomas.
Yes. I liked both of them quite a bit, obviously. So his question is,
and I hope they do well, because if they do, I'll give them crap. Or if one of them does, I guess the way we have the show set up is there's not like a runner-up prize. It's one person wins everything. But
if you get out, Captain Logan gets to harass you for the rest of the game show.
Oh, I mean, like I reserve the right regardless.
Yeah. All right.
Captain's prerogative.
Checkers asks, I think a problem with real movies not being in theaters is people tend to not give movies proper attention unless it is in a cinema, as in half watching on their phones, missing important dialogue, and just not getting the proper experience.
I can't disagree with that.
I don't disagree with him, but I also think that happens a lot of the time in theaters. I've seen that a lot amongst very young people. I notice they go to movies just because it's a thing to do, and they are in the theater on their phones, giggling with their friends. They're not even really paying attention.
So you can't assume that just because somebody goes to a theater doesn't mean that it's not the same kind of passive experience where they're not actually actively involved in that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's onto something in my view, in a sense that I think it's much easier to be captivated in an environment like a movie theater than it is potentially at home, where it's just like on a TV and you have all these distractions around you. If you really make an effort to like turn your phone off and like be in the theater, it is a very immersive experience. So
it's also
probably a higher percentage of people that pay attention in theaters, maybe. But I still think it happens in both places, unfortunately.
Well, and I know he wasn't talking about this specifically, but he was talking about different ways outside of a theater of watching a thing, different devices and on televisions and what have you. As a creator, it's got to be a lot more difficult to control the experience that you're hoping a person has.
Yeah.
When they can watch it in any possible way. So, when you know that most people, before they see it at home, are probably going to go to a movie theater and watch it on relatively this size screen and with this kind of sound, et cetera, there could be a lot of people watching the thing into your mind as a creator in an inferior way, where even if they are giving it 100% of their attention, they might miss really important details, or it might not give them the tone and atmosphere that it's supposed to, that kind of thing. There have definitely been things that I have watched small that I appreciated much more when I was able to see them big, or where I watched a thing huge and then watched it later at home and it didn't have anything like the same impact. And obviously I don't watch a lot of TV on my phone, but it's not like I never have done that. And I have made that mistake before because it was just the only way available to me. And like, let's say I was on a trip in a hotel room or something, and I didn't have a tablet with me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch, this Netflix show on the, like this small of a screen, and then I don't. It's easier if you're not fully appreciating a thing, where you're just not digging it right away, to not give it a fair shake or its due. Where if you watched it in the format that it was more intended, or at least a lot bigger, you might notice something that kind of grabs you more, because we are talking about a visual medium. We are talking about visual storytelling. So there's that part of it too. There's the Nolan complaint that to factor in there too.
Yeah, I mean, I can say as a person that bought my first new TV in my entire life recently, I got a 55-inch TV, and that's like the first large TV I've ever had. And I do notice more things just on like a home TV that's pretty large compared to, I used to watch on like a tiny TV that I had to like squint at from across the room to read video game dialogue subtitles on. You know what I mean? Like it was super small. So yeah, I mean, with a movie theater, it's just that experience amplified times 20.
Yeah, I intentionally set up my office when we got into this house, when I set up the bunker, so that we could do commentaries with a projector screen now. I've got my projector here, and whenever we do a commentary and you guys are seeing me look off this way, I've got a big screen that pulls down from the ceiling, and we'll do commentaries, and I'll see new things on a movie I've seen 15 times.
Yeah.
That I never saw before, that I might not have even as close as I am if I was watching it here on the monitor, which I used to do.
Yeah. No, it's just when the image is blown up, you can see more. It's awesome. So let's see. Next, the super chat is from Batman Rocks, and he says, Telltale did the subversion of Bruce Wayne's parents really well. If the Batman film does that in a way that serves Bruce's arc and isn't solely for shock value, that could be great. However, the corrupt Waynes, I fear, may be a trope.
Yeah, I kind of want to reserve judgment until we see it. And by the way, I want to especially thank Batman Rocks for the $20 super chat. That was awesome. Thanks a ton, man. Didn't have to do that. I liked it in Telltale. I thought it really worked there. It's a case-by-case sort of thing. It's a little bit sad in a way to me that that's becoming more and more, weirdly, of the standard Batman origin, that the parents were secretly involved in organized crime for various motivations between different continuities. I think even Jeff Johns did some variation of that, if I'm not mistaken, in year one, although it's been a while since I've read that, so I can't remember for sure, but I thought there was something about like the Waynes involved with the corrupt crime, something maybe with the Penguin. I can't remember now, it's been so long, but maybe that movie's looking at that stuff too.
My thing with Batman's parents has always been, Gotham is a city that runs on corruption, and these are people who are incredibly wealthy, incredibly powerful, incredibly influential. They have to at least know these people to get to the positions that they're in and be in bed with them to some degree. I have never thought that it made a whole lot of sense that there's these squeaky clean members of the Gotham aristocracy. Like, that just it just doesn't make sense in that world to me. But I'm not a huge like Batman head or anything, so I mean, I could be wrong, but that's just I'm not worried about that. That's actually like my preferred take, I would say. So yeah, I'm not worried.
It just depends on the take and the angle, right? Like, if they're gonna be secretly like awful people that aren't just involved but were like a crime family, that's harder to pull off, but still could potentially work, just because Batman's motivations for why he becomes a crime fighter become very different if his corrupt, awful part of the problem parents are killed versus his altruistic trying to show him a better outlook, and like, you know, the way that you can help people with money instead of money having to be a for sure, you know, root of all evil kind of thing. I also think both of those takes can be really valid, like both of those motivations. Like, he either puts on that suit because his parents were part of the problem, or he puts on that suit because they were part of the solution. Man, either of those can work, but he's going to be a different character depending on which way you go with that, certainly.
And that could be potentially cool. I mean, if we have to see the Batman origin again, which I think for these characters is important to see, like what specifically motivates this version of the character, not relying necessarily on your like pre-existing knowledge of what you know from other things. I think that could be a cool, like,
especially because with Batman specifically, there's so many different ways to do that. You can't assume we know anything. You really can't with that. I never liked it with Spider-Man, but there's more of an argument there because there's kind of one definitive I've said this 1,000 times. Spider-Man's not Batman. There's not 100,000 valid versions of Spider-Man. There's kind of one, and there's like little nuances and tweaks you can make. There's a lot of Batmans. There are not a lot of Spider-Mans. Despite the fact that Spider-Verse is all we want to frickin' do with Spider-Man now, there's kind of one Spider-Man. It's not like that with Batman, kind of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. That's one of the reasons why I thought No Way Home was weird in a lot of ways, because it's not my Spider-Man.
Somebody's about to ask you about that. You're gonna have to get your thoughts together, Dan.
Okay.
Real quick before we move on, though, let me also say that I liked what you said earlier about how unbelievable it might be that Bruce Wayne's parents would be, wealthy but benevolent in that city. I would argue, though, that there are various levels of corruption with different versions of Gotham. It's not always like the most awful, corrupt, like sort of place. But these days, that tends to be how we do it. But the other thing is, I think the best argument for it was in Begins, where it's kind of old money, and Thomas Wayne doesn't have any interest in business, and he just wants to be a doctor, so he lets somebody else run his family's company, and he's still wealthy because he owns the company, but he stays out of that world entirely. So I mean,
Right.
they're high society, but they tiptoe around it. Like that was somewhat believable, and also I think made more believable by the fact that the only thing that was apparently keeping the city from completely falling apart was people like the Waynes who were attempting to fix it, and like otherwise it would have all like Ra's al Ghul wouldn't have even had to attempt his plan. So like I think in that material they kind of made an argument for it. I think Nolan looked at that, or Goyer or whoever, and saw it the way you saw it, and we're like, well, how could we make it work and make them actually sympathetic and likable.
Well, yeah, and like you said, I mean, the Gotham in that movie, they're old money, like meaning that Gotham at one point was not a corrupt like heckhole, you know. Um, then there's like the Snyder, or like that's like one of the people that comes off the top of my head that have done this, but he's not the only one, where it's like being corrupt is kind of like Gotham's curse, like going all the way back to the founding of the city in like the old days. Like it's always been like Chicago, a city that's run by gangsters, you know?
The Five Family thing.
Yeah, exactly. So like I have always liked that take on Gotham myself. And in that like framework, I don't think it makes sense for the Waynes to be squeaky clean. But if you're doing it more like what you said, like that works fine too, for sure.
The other thing is, I just thought of this. When they're not squeaky clean, we tend to go more for a conspiracy kill.
Yeah.
And I don't like that.
That's
I
fair.
guess I could be made to like that, but traditionally, it seems to always be better if it's a random mugging, and then Bruce Wayne has to deal with this random awful thing that killed his parents, as opposed to a big convoluted conspiracy. But I can see the merits of it to some degree. I've just never seen it done great.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, it just depends on the version. I'm just really excited to see what Reeves and Pattinson do with the character. I mean, I'm not the biggest Batman fan in the world, but like that looking like a real movie with like character arcs and like movie things in it.
This is where our standards are. Dan's excited because of movie things.
Yeah. It looks like it just looks like a movie that like care was put into like how it was written, and I think that's exciting.
It looks like a, what do you call it, a movie.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move on to Bob the Hun. Oh, he said something inappropriate. I probably shouldn't read that.
Okay. Was it in a super chat?
Yes.
Can you like read sort of around it, or give us the gist of it, or
So
not really?
Whedon went from never kissing ladies to kissing the hottest lady. From a certain point of view, you could say he's the hero of this story. Bless him.
Okay, well, he left a super chat and we had to read it, and we talked as much about that as I'd like to. So we'll go ahead and move on. But thanks for the super chat, Bob.
And then it looks like Chewbacca's lover responded to him saying, basically, he said, I said some things I shouldn't have said, but I thought these people were friends and never knew how they took it or considered it abusive. Yeah, that's basically what we had said.
Yeah, and I did mention that. Sorry, folks, we got long-winded, and some of these super chats were from conversations we had like last weekend. So
yeah. So the next one is, I'm late that I missed Dan's No Way Home thoughts. You didn't.
No, you did not. And he's going to lay them out for you right now.
Yeah, I mean,
People have been begging me for you to do this, Dan.
Well, I get kind of nervous talking about it because, like, I feel like whenever I talk about this movie, people think I want to, like, ruin their fun or something. And then, like, because I didn't like the
you're
movie,
going to get that comment.
that they like can enjoy it or something. I don't know what it is. I'm glad that whoever you are out there that's angry at me for not liking the movie, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I just personally did not. I thought it was one of the worst movies I've ever had to sit through in the theater. It was embarrassing. I thought that it was just an excuse to put nostalgia cartoons on the screen and a plot that was loosely hobbled together to accommodate that. I don't know. I thought they chose to adapt one of the worst Spider-Man stories ever written, which is One More Day, which is where most of the plot comes from. It's just when I go to see a Spider-Man movie, I would like to see a Spider-Man movie that's about like interpersonal relationships, tragedy, the underdog overcoming insurmountable odds, and like this is just a movie that's about like it's a big celebration event movie like Endgame, which I also hated, and I just am tired of Marvel making these movies where they say, "Oh, we're building something, we're going to pay this off," and then what they use to pay it off is just a cameo stunt casting fest. Um, that's just not for me. I prefer like stories that actually have emotional and personal resonance for me as a person. That's why I like Spider-Man as a character. He's the most grounded and down to earth um, character of the superhero characters, in my opinion. That's why I like him. And making Spider-Man into this thing that has to be a giant event every time, I think it really prevents them from telling the good stories that I love from the comics with the character. Spider-Man is a street level character. He's not a character that like is traveling through dimensions and like all of these kind of things. I don't know. It's not for me. I'm glad that a lot of people seem to enjoy it. I know that I'm in the vast minority. All of the people that were in the theater with me were shrieking with joy. I guess I'm just a cynical, cranky old man now. I don't know. But I much prefer what things like, not in terms of tone, but I mean in terms of like what they're doing, with what James Gunn is doing with the Suicide Squad and the Peacemaker show. Those are actual stories that happen to have humor in them. There's some dark stuff in them. I mean, I think he balances the tone of what a comic book is pretty well, and I think that's why his Guardians movies are some of my favorite MCU movies. But I don't know. I just the only things I really liked in the movie were when Andrew Garfield was on screen, because he's my favorite Spider-Man actor, and he seemed like he was having a great time being there. But other than that, it just seemed like a cynical cash grab to me that a lot of people fell for. But I'm glad they enjoyed it.
Of course, I did 3 hours and 17 minutes on this, so I'm not going to weigh in on it. Again, obviously, I agree with a lot of what you said, but enjoyed it somehow somewhat more than you did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Spider-Man is just like the character that gets the most names. Like, I had this with the comic books too. Like, when Spider-Man was bad, I kind of like lost interest in all like Marvel things in general, because like I would like. Spider-Man to me is like the thing you got to get right if you're Marvel. Like he's your Mickey Mouse, like Spider-Man is the thing you need to get right. And I just don't care about the MCU anymore. Like that Doctor Strange movie they're making looks like No Way Home again, where it's just going to be like a million cameos from other things that people remember, and I could not be less excited for that movie. I'm a big Doctor Strange fan too. They ruined the mythology of Doctor Strange in the Spider-Man movie, and then they're going to ruin the next movie by making it just a cameo fest that is barely even a Doctor Strange movie. But I guess that's what people want, so they're going to give it to them.
I did real quick want to mention that you brought up the One More Day thing, and several weeks ago before the movie came out, I mentioned that and thought it was very strange that we were kind of pigeonholing that movie in a place where it was having to sort of adapt from a story that everybody hated, the comics. And if you're going to do... I mean, I didn't even love the unmasking thing, because it's like we get 2 movies... and then your second movie is kind of a side story that doesn't really get us anywhere, and then immediately you unmask the only character in the MCU with a secret identity. Like, what are you doing? But if that was the direction you wanted to go, we should have at least lived with it for a while and come up with a more natural way, if we had to get out of it, to get out of it. But I also think if you're going to write out of it, just don't even do it. Like, what is the point of it? It was really clear they just went, we need something dramatic, and then, oh crap, we don't know what we're even gonna go after this. But I mentioned the One More Day thing because somebody in the comments then said, oh, they're not adapting One More Day. There's this other story that did that, like, before that, and that's what they went to. And I don't remember what story that person was talking about, but I do have to say, I felt that this is not a thing I mentioned in our video a couple weeks ago. I do feel very vindicated now because the thanks to credits at the end of that movie have JMS's name in them. So, yeah, they were looking at One More Day, and
no, that's clearly
I think kind of obviously, but, you know,
I don't know what that guy's
if you still don't believe me, just go look at those credits, because why else would his name be in there? It's not like they went to Moreland, like...
Yeah. No, and, like, Doctor Strange is the person that, like, erases, or he does a bunch of stuff after... One More Day to like help Peter out in Slot's front with all that stuff. So they were clearly looking at all of that, especially the Slot stuff, because he's responsible for all this bull crap. The Spider-Verse thing was a fanficky thing when they did it in the comics, and it was just as bad in the movie. Yeah, I don't know. I just would have preferred a real story, I guess. I think they also kind of muddled Peter's motivation to the point where I don't even know, like, why he was Spider-Man in the previous films. Like, this is a Spider-Man that I've always thought had the problem that he was too chipper and happy-go-lucky and Marty McFly-like. The Peter Parker that I like in the comic books when he's in high school, even in all of the other the readaptations and modernizations of it, like Ultimate Spider-Man, Peter is a very angsty and outcast person. That's one of the reasons why wearing the Spider-Man costume is so liberating for him, because he can finally show his personality to everyone. He jokes and he wisecracks. Tom Holland plays him like they kind of said at the beginning, like a teen in a John Hughes movie. He doesn't seem like a character that's burdened by the guilt of his uncle dying and feeling responsible for that and trying to make up for that for the rest of his life. Like, that's not the way he plays the character. And they kind of confirmed in this movie he doesn't play it like that because he didn't have that tragedy in his backstory. They kind of give him an Uncle Ben like moment with Aunt May, and she's killed by the Green Goblin from another universe he has no relationship with. It's like, this is the most devoid of emotion Spider-Man family member death scene I've ever seen. Like, besides the fact that I love William Dafoe in the old movie, there's nothing going on between any of these characters and me, because the Green Goblin doesn't know Spider-Man personally, except for like talking to him in an alleyway once. Aunt May's barely in any of these movies, so like, I get Peter, she's important to him, but I don't really know much about their relationship. I'm not super invested in her, so it's like,
she felt totally expendable.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, that's the person you would kill off. I don't know. It's just I'm glad people enjoyed it. More power to them. It was not for me. I went back and started reading like more Spider-Man comic books that kind of cleanse my palate from it. And I just, the MCU stuff, it just seems to me like in the future like they're so dependent on fan service as they build towards the Secret Wars stuff. And like I was just burned with the Loki show, which I was really excited about, that just ended up being an ad for Kang. I'm just like, if everything I watch is just going to be a setup for more things that'll culminate in a nostalgic anniversary movie, I just don't care anymore, you know. But,
yeah, and that's rough because I really liked that show up until then. Like, I thought that last episode was kind of, ugh.
Yeah.
Like, I just didn't, I'm with you. It didn't even feel like it had really it sort of had a climax, but it sort of felt like it didn't. It was sort of like you said, like it was just leading to something else down the road. And can we quit having these revelations at the ends of things, with especially the Disney Plus shows that are not revelations at all? Can we quit doing that? It's like big cliffhanger endings where like sometimes it's after credits, sometimes it's not, but it's like, oh man, here's this person, and they're like, I don't even know who that is, or oh, is this that guy? Who cares about that guy? Okay, yeah, it's an actor you have in your stable that you brought back for a thing. All right, like, you guys have been a crossover, a shared universe for 14 years. We're gonna see characters that are in other things. It's not a novelty. Like,
Well, and one of the things that I don't love about the MCU now is that everything has to be a team up movie now too. Like there are no solo character films anymore, where we focused on the supporting casts from the comics of those individual characters. It's all team ups with other MCU characters to
Yeah.
get butts and seats if the character wasn't initially all that popular at the outset. You know, like even Black Widow is a team movie.
Yeah.
There's like a team of Black Widow people. Like, why can't we just have a movie about her?
It's a formula now. It's the new
Yeah.
superhero movie formula. Absolutely. And DCEU grabbed onto it real hard, real fast. We've been making fun of that a lot lately here on the show. Like the sheer number of DCEU movies that are team movies.
Yeah, it's
Or team building movies. It's even funnier there because they're not even just team things, but the whole movie is building a team every time.
yeah, and I just some of the things that they do for jokes in the Spider-Man movie are like the epitome of the MCU just like not caring at all about like the continuity or the mythology that they're building in these movies, and they'll throw it any of it away for an improv joke or something. So like the writers of the Spider-Man movie came out and said that originally Doctor Strange was going to be the one to bring the MCU Spider-Man various variants that look like other actors for some reason. But they were going to bring them in.
Jameson always looks like the same actor for
some
reason.
He was going to bring them in, but then at the last minute, they realized that like the Ned actor had nothing to do. So they were like, "Oh, we'll give that to Ned." So we'll say that Doctor Strange, who trained for months, if not years. I mean, I don't know exactly how much time passed between him coming to the Ancient One and learning how to use the sling ring and things. I mean, he had to train for a long time to even make like sparks with that thing. And then Ned says, "Oh, because I have a magic grandma, I can like open portals to other dimensions and other places in my own dimension." Like it ruins Doctor Strange's powers. If Ned can do it, why can't anyone be Doctor Strange now?
That's not how the Force works.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, but they needed this character to do something to do because they overstuffed the movie and they threw all that stuff away for a gag. Oh, wouldn't it be funny if Ned can do magic? Ha ha ha! It's like, no, it's not funny. This is dumb.
Yeah, and I mentioned this in our review, but it seemed like they were also maybe doing that to try to arbitrarily give him something that would eventually lead him to being a villain, where like he has magic powers, something, he's the Hobgoblin. I don't know, but it seemed like that was supposed to somehow be connected to the whole gag. Again, another gag of Peter Parker's best friend always becomes his worst enemy. So like they bring that up, but then also he has magic powers now, and those are the only things we do with that character. So I can't help but make a connection there. Like.
Yeah. So someone in the comments, Chewbacca's lover, said, "I concede a lot of your complaints, but I don't get how you're acting like this is the worst thing the MCU has put out." I mean, I'm not necessarily saying it's like objectively the worst thing that they've ever made. I am just a much more a big Spider-Man fan than any of these other characters. Like Daredevil is a very close second to me, but Spider-Man is just very special to me, and it just hurts my feelings more when it's like this cynical and this such little care was put into crafting this story, which is what I'm there for. If other people like what they did, that's fine. And if they dislike or other MCU movies more, that's fine. It's just for me, this personally is like a movie I didn't really enjoy because Spider-Man is the character that means the most to me. It doesn't bother me when Ant-Man is dumb. Like, who cares?
Yeah, when you're more invested in a thing, obviously it's going to hurt your feelings more when it doesn't live up to your expectations or you think it's phoned in or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Real quick, I want to bring up, because you reminded me of this with your Doctor Strange thing, a thing that I did not happen to mention, even though we talked for 3 hours and 17 minutes in our No Way Home review, and that is, and we'll see if Dan can answer this. I know you can't, Dan. I know you can't, but I'll give you the challenge anyway. Seems like there's lines or a scene missing. What is with the bit where Doctor Strange does the whole, and this was in the trailer even, does the whole knocking Peter's soul out of his body thing. Yeah. And then Peter is able to somehow, with his soul, move his body so that he's dodging things Doctor Strange is trying to do. And then he says, Oh, hey, that's weird. You're not supposed to be able to do that.
Maybe I'm made magic too.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It never comes back. There's no payoff for that.
That's not why people went to that movie. They didn't go for the story. They went to.
But why is it there? Why is it in the scene?
They went to go see nostalgia cartoons. They went to go see Willem Dafoe, not even on screen in his goblin costume for one scene. They couldn't even get him in the full costume for one scene. And then he has a ripped purple sweatshirt as his costume. It's a hoodie. He looks like a homeless man. I could not believe that.
Yeah, and that was a real kind of CW move. But like, yeah. No, I'm with you. The movie is real hobbled together, but the motivation of the main reason they think they can get butts in seats with that movie does not like the Nostalgia Fest thing does not explain any kind of motivation behind having that happen in that movie. I just don't understand why it even happens. Why does he do that?
I don't know.
Who thought to write that? Why is it in there?
Doesn't matter. It was probably in like draft 47 of the script, and like someone copy and pasted it in. I don't know.
It's really weird.
That movie. They said the writers came out in an interview and said they were rewriting that movie in December of last year, a year before the release of the film, and because they didn't know if they were going to be able to get Toby and Andrew, so they signed them on in December of 2020 and then started rewriting the entire film to accommodate them being in it.
I know.
Like, this is a rushed butt production.
Yeah. And it really bugs me, like whether you loved it or not, it just really bugs me when a movie that's that forced together and that sloppily written, and in some cases not written, and not in like a good way, like with Iron Man and stuff, does the kind of guns that did, because it sets a bad precedent. When that can make almost $2 billion.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing that worries me. I mean, they had after this movie, looked like projection-wise it was going to do really well. Marvel had Benedict Cumberbatch refilm almost the entire Doctor Strange film 6 days a week, like working crazy hours so they could put fun multiverse cameos in the movie. So like that, get ready. Patrick Stewart's coming. It's going to happen. Hugh Jackman's coming back, guys. They're going to do all that stuff. And it'll be very interesting to see.
We'll see just how much of it is. And I don't know that they reshot as much of the movie as you're saying they did, but it clearly it was quite a bit.
Quite a lot. And there is no way that they don't dump a dump truck full of money on Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman's lawn to get them to be in Secret Wars. And I'm going to be very interested to see if people care. Because I remember everyone on the internet said, oh, Hugh Jackman got a great send-off as Wolverine. This is all I need. Hugh Jackman, go home. You put the claws up on the wall. We don't need any more Hugh Jackman Wolverine. But if they put him in a Marvel movie, people will probably clap and they'll love it.
No, I think so too. Even if, and I don't want that either, for the very reason you're saying. And Patrick Stewart said he had no interest in ever doing it again because his death was so good in Logan. But I mean, I really hate saying this because Patrick Stewart remains my favorite actor. But after Picard, after the Picard show, the man clearly has no integrity whatsoever. It's really unfortunate. So yeah, when he's in that, I won't be surprised. And I've lost all my shattering disillusionment with Patrick Stewart. Like, forget Joss Whedon. My disillusionment happened with Patrick Stewart, and not even because of awful things he did, because of awful things that he agreed to help make. But what I was going to say is, we talked about this also on a show last week or the week before, DJ and I, but my hope is if that has to happen, that they don't have the same stupid embargo thing that they clearly have right now with Spider-Man, where any character that has appeared on screen before or that they decide to bring back, we pretend like that's the versions from the old movies that we bring back are the definitive version and we can never do our own again. Because the bigger issue for me with No Way Home, Dan, wasn't and some of it I was more okay with than you were, and some of the things they did with some of those characters I thought was legitimately fun. But the bigger issue I had beyond fan service was we didn't get to see one MCU version of any of those characters.
Yeah,
like, and so if we do that with X-Men, they ain't got a franchise.
I would assume that they'll have those characters cameo, and like the villains will be entirely recast. I hope. Well, I mean, the only one.
But they have to eventually recast Wolverine. Like, they have to.
Right. Well, and I think the only villain they could potentially act like was the definitive version is Magneto.
Yep.
And I do not want them to not do Magneto again. I mean, he is the X-Men villain. You know, I know that we've used him in everything like we do with Lex Luthor and Superman, but it's because Magneto is awesome. He's one of my favorite villains in Marvel. He's awesome. So I guess we'll see. But for the foreseeable future, I'm just not interested in anything they're doing. That Moon Knight trailer looked kind of cool.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that. I think it looks cool too.
Yeah, I think that is one of the things that has interested me the most I've seen in terms of like trailers and stuff. Like, I initially was pretty excited to watch Eternals when it came out, but I don't know. I never went to the theater to see it, and I haven't watched it on Disney yet. I don't care about Shang-Chi. Black Widow was pretty good.
And I thought that was dull as bricks.
Yeah.
Black Widow.
I thought Loki was just an ad. I liked WandaVision. I thought Falcon and Winter Soldier was really bad. So, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like they've had a lot of misses lately for me personally. That's kind of killed my interest.
Well, and if you ever watch Hawkeye, I imagine you'll like the things I liked and you'll hate the things I hate. I don't know for sure. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
yeah.
What I would warn you with that is the thing I'm pretty sure you'll hate could be the thing that completely kills the show for you.
I have heard...
You know about it already.
What they do to my boy. And I haven't seen it in context, but from what I've been told about it, it sounds dumb.
Dan, he's a completely different character, acted the exact same way. He comes in, we're being cryptic again. He comes in, he gives the same performance as if everything counts, but the writing is completely different, and he's one-dimensional and nothing, and
sounds like an MCU villain.
It's amazing.
Well, and that's one of the things that that worries me about if they do a Daredevil revival. Like, I don't want inferior Netflix Daredevil or like Daredevil like in the tone of the MCU. That like gives me...
Well, and having said that, and again,
shiver.
This is just a trailer. There could be some forced in humor. Who knows what the tone ultimately really is going to be with Moon Knight. But if you had shown me that trailer 4 years ago with a Netflix logo on it, I would have bought that as a Netflix show. I'm not saying it will be to that standard. I'm not saying that they'll let it go to as dark a places as that did. And dark doesn't necessarily equal better, of course. But it's going, at least in that trailer, seemingly more rough and tumble than I thought they would be allowed to with Moon Knight. And they need to let that happen. There's a scene where he's just like beating up on a guy and he won't stop, and it looks like he might never stop, and that looks like it belongs in a Netflix show, and it also looks like it belongs in the Moon Knight thing, and didn't think you'd see that on Disney Plus. So I mean, and the costume looks really wicked cool.
It does. I love that they turned it into like an Egyptian mummy bandage thing.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
That's really cool. And it looks like, all that lore and mythology is intact, and it looks like it's about mental illness, which is what it should be. And it looks like Oscar Isaac is doing a real different thing. Disappearing as much as it can, and I don't know. It looks cool. I don't know if it will be, but it does. And they're going more stylized than I thought they might. Like Hawkeye in like starting to tread back into the street level, darker Netflix-esque stuff, I got kind of worried because it's not allowed to go that stylized, and there are places where it's bordering on it, but people have been really worried that when we get to that kind of Daredevil stuff, it's gonna feel real watered down, and after Hawkeye, I'm like, yeah, and then you get that trailer, and it doesn't look like that, but it's a trailer, so I don't know.
it'll be interesting to see because the MCU recently, I feel like they have really tried to tone down some of the violent stuff. Like
Yeah.
there's a scene in the Black Widow movie which I overall quite enjoyed, but in the movie there's this scene where I think Florence Pugh's character, the young blonde Black Widow, Yelena, that's her name, right?
Yelena, yeah.
Yeah, she stabs a person in the stomach and like twists the knife, and she takes the knife out, and then like they show like the person's body, and it's just a woman with like a wet spot on her shirt.
Yep.
Like it's just water.
Well, and you can.
Like, her guts were cut out of her stomach.
And you can tell that that director is fighting hard with the studio trying to make the movie she wanted to make, and it made that whole. And again, I didn't really like that movie, and it felt it was a really awkward viewing experience because it felt like an artist fighting with a corporation the entire movie to me.
Yeah, there was definitely some of that in there, but. I think, you know, one of the telling things is the original director of that Black Widow movie, she dropped out because she said that Marvel told her that, yeah, you're here to direct the talking scenes and we'll just take care of the action. Like, you don't, they were like, don't worry about it. Like, you don't even have to direct those scenes. It's like, okay.
Which makes you wonder if a similar conversation happened with Edgar Wright with Ant-Man.
Maybe. I mean, I probably varies depending on director to director, but you know, I just think it speaks to the point that, you know, these movies are so tightly controlled by the studio. Like it's by necessity, out of the fact that it's like this giant, you know, juggernaut, interconnected universe franchise. It kind of has to be, but I think their movies have suffered over time because of that. Like, I was really excited about the MCU in the early days when it was Phase 1, Phase 2, you know, like I really enjoyed like some of the early stuff they put out, like, you know, First Avenger, Thor, Iron Man. I like the first Incredible Hulk movie quite a bit. I'm a Hulk fan, so I'm biased, but you know, I like a bunch of the Phase 2 movies, but I feel like after Infinity War, they feel a lot out of gas. So hopefully that changes their minds. Like I'm, you know, with that, if I hear it's good, I may check it out. You know.
Well, and with the exception of Eternals, and projects like that, I guess there aren't really any other projects like that. I'm trying to think of anything else. With recent movies, with the exception of Eternals, we know that a lot of storyboarding and special effects and things are already being worked on before they even bring a director in to start shooting stuff. Yep. So when somebody, like I mentioned the Edgar Wright thing, when somebody leaves over creative differences, it sounds to me like very often the creative difference is whether or not the director gets to be a creative.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Because you're basically directing Kevin Feige's vision. I mean, he's just hiring people to execute. I mean, I'm sure that the screenwriters are involved too, but like Kevin Feige is the one that suggested, for example, the premise of having all of the Spider-Men come together in that Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man movie.
Well, and that wasn't even his idea in the first place, but it was an after-credit scene they were supposed to do in whatever that movie was going to be, and then he went, let's take that and make it the movie. So, like, the actual idea of that, as far as I understand, wasn't even his. It was just making it the whole movie was.
Right, yeah, because originally they wanted to do a Craven movie. Yep. That's what John Watts wanted to do.
Yeah, and we've talked about all this here, but you haven't been here, so you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't imagine how frustrated he was.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I imagine, and I don't want to throw too much shade at Kevin Feige because he's done some great things, of course, but when I hear stuff like that, I imagine Kevin Feige is Stan Lee, like... giving an artist like a 2-sentence log line, and then he has to draw the whole thing, and then Stanley just comes in later and fills in the balloons. Like, I imagine that with Feige, where it's like, when you said direct his vision, I'm like, what's his vision? Put all the cameos in there. That's my vision.
Cameos.
I remember when I created cameos.
All right, we should probably move on before I incite an angry mob.
No, that's okay. That's actually why I brought you on. I thought it would be interesting. Spice things up a little bit. So we're already at almost 2.5 hours, and I'm going to need to get going soon. How many more Super Chats do we have? And let's knock them out as lickety-split as possible. You just open that guy had to open the floodgates.
Say again? Left. Just 2 left.
Oh, just 2. Wonderful. I don't know why you said 2, but I heard 5.
Oh. Maybe I had a stroke while I was saying two. That's entirely possible. All right.
All right, let's go. Let's do the 5 remaining super chats.
So
Go ahead.
Chocolate Lover says, I rewatched your After Darks with Eric for a third time. Just watched the one with you and Dan with drunk Eric.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, you remember that? Remember how crazy Eric was that night?
Yeah, no, that was really fun.
Do you know how many years ago that was?
How many?
4.5.
That's crazy. I was going to guess 5,
It's
but
crazy.
it seems like yesterday, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's nuts. When we were young.
We just got another super chat. Last call for super chats, folks. We got to wrap the show up here.
Okay, well, so Super Billy will be the last one, but the next.
Well, I say last call. If somebody else wants to throw in one real fast, we'll. But we're gonna be lickety split, guys. So
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
Go ahead. Dan.
All right, so Busted Sim says, would Thomas Wayne Batman have been a better fit for the Snyderverse?
Better fit than what? Like there were rumors for a while that we were going to go there, and of course that's not happening. There was talk that that might be in the Flashpoint movie or in the Flash movie, because of course that seems to loosely be looking at Flashpoint to some degree. So I don't know. In going to Flashpoint, I might have appreciated that. There's a part of me, honestly, that would have loved it if instead of playing '89 Batman, they just brought in Keaton to be the Flashpoint version of Thomas Wayne. That honestly could have been really pretty cool. Where it's like we're gonna recast him as another Batman instead of doing what is quickly becoming obligatory rope everything into the same continuity thing and be all gimmicky and impress people who have memories. So yeah, I mean, it would have been neat if they'd done that. But as far as your question goes, I'm not totally sure what you mean by better, because better than what?
True. All right, so Bob the Hun brought to my attention that we didn't read one of his super chats. So I forgot to write it down, but I found it.
Oh, great!
And
Thank
he
you.
says, it's important to point out that a lot of people don't like this Spider-Man and wouldn't be okay with this decision if they did, not just nostalgia.
Oh, I'm sorry. Read that one more time, would you?
It's important to point out that a lot of people don't like this Spider-Man and wouldn't be okay with this decision if they did, not just nostalgia.
With what decision?
I don't know.
Because that was from an earlier conversation, and Dan had a lot of things to say about that movie, so we're only just now getting to this. But you're right. I mean, a lot of the reason that movie is doing has been doing huge guns is because of people that missed their iteration of Spider-Man and have really hated Holland's. It's almost amazing that the Holland movies, apparently, yes. I mean, I meet them all the time, and a lot of these people seem to feel very vindicated now because we brought back, their Spider-Man, and a lot of them are Tobey Maguire people, and I mean. Like nothing against whatever your favorite thing is. I was surprised by how much I ended up liking his performance in that movie. Weirdly, I came out of that with a completely different thing that I thought I would, Dan. Where I was like, okay, I mean, if they did Spider-Man 4 now with him just being like middle-aged and kind of no longer weird about everything, that might be kind of cool. And I didn't think I would say that. It was a very strange experience I had with that. But anyway.
Yes. No, I tend to agree. I mean, I guess my general impression from talking to most people is that Tom Holland is well loved. But I mean, if you guys have had a different experience, then I guess I just haven't talked to all of the anti-Holland stands.
It must be a generation gap thing.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
It must be like your generation and younger. And older, sorry. And then, like, because you got to remember, Dan, there's this whole generation of people now that like grew up with the MCU. Like, it's hard for you and I to appreciate the MCU as people's childhoods now. And, like, those people, for them, Holland probably is Spider-Man. But for people older than them like you that either grew up with Maguire or appreciated Garfield because you didn't think Maguire was as good or quite right. It's those people are like, because a lot of it is that Iron Boy argument that he was never really Spider-Man in the first place.
Yeah, and I think that there's some merit to that argument. But yeah, I mean, I suppose. Yeah, it's just a really weird situation. It's having all cakes and eating all of them.
That's
all
great.
Cakes, all of the cakes.
All the cakes. Yeah.
All right, so next one is from Super Billy, and he says the MCU having such an efficient money-making assembly line and Kevin's authoritarianism creatively chokeholds the entire franchise. That is harsh language.
It is.
Calling it authoritarian and chokeholding the franchise. I agree, I guess, with the general sentiment that, like, the fact that they are assembly line products now and the fact that it's so producer driven is a problem. The characterization, I guess, is what I thought was a little funny, but
yeah, because I don't know what he's like behind the scenes.
Yeah,
and
who knows?
Producer is his job, and
yeah.
I mean, you got to keep in mind that a lot of what really worked about the MCU in the first place was because of him, or couldn't have happened without him, certainly. There's a part of me that sometimes wonders if it might have been time after Endgame for him to relinquish the reins to somebody else who might have known how to take it forward better, because I can see how it might be difficult to not be trapped in the past a little bit while trying really hard to move forward.
Well, yeah. It's crazy.
I mean, they're adapting a lot of newer characters that didn't exist when he started the MCU. I mean, like, you know, he was responsible for bringing in a lot of classic or older characters, and now suddenly we're adapting, all of these contemporary things from the last decade that I'm sure he's going in and reading the comics and stuff, but it's not the same as adapting stuff that you were like really passionate about and into as a comics fan like he was earlier on. I just wonder if a changing of the guard might have been in order, or at least he might have needed a protege that he could groom into his position or something, or have a co-captain or something. I mean, I'm not saying the man should be fired. If you're Disney, you wouldn't be thinking that. That's not what I mean.
No, if Disney fired Kevin Feige at this point, whoever made that decision, their head should roll. Like, if you're an executive at the Walt Disney Company, like Kevin Feige is your golden goose,
But all I'm saying is, and you can, and to take that analogy forward, you can certainly, overfeed the golden goose to the point where, or make the goose lay so many eggs that they're done and they're not going to be able to do that anymore. It's interesting that he's been doing that job for 14, 15 years at MCU and was doing it for Marvel properties even well before that. I think a lot of people forget that. And I mean, like, his name is on the 03 Daredevil movie and X-Men. And I mean, he was there for a lot of this stuff. And it's interesting that just MCU, 14, 15 years he's been there. If you go back and look at the Star Trek work that was done under Rick Berman, who was there with Roddenberry from with Rick Berman from the beginning of TNG 87 all the way to the end of Enterprise 05. That was 17 years. And you can see how burnt out that staff is, being a lot of the same creative people for all that amount of time. You can't tell me that there's not some degree of burnt outness that happens when you've been at that job for that long.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, and it's like, I just feel like now that they have lost most of the big heavy hitters because the actors kind of aged out of the roles and they don't want to recast them. Like with Captain America and Iron Man, they're either having the legacy versions of them come in and have other characters take their place, like War Machine and Ironheart and Sam Wilson Cap and all these sorts of things. There's no way in my mind that those characters are ever going to eclipse the iconic popularity of the original versions of the characters.
And it doesn't feel sustainable because of that.
No. And I think they're realizing that.
In the next 10 or 15 years, do the children of the kids that grew up with that first iteration have the same, like adoration for this new string of characters, or do they just go back and watch what their parents watched?
Yeah,
and then
I mean,
they just kind of keep this alive because, well, it's still going. I guess we have to, like, how long does that go?
Yeah, I wonder. I think what'll eventually happen is they'll get to the point where they sort of run out of ideas to do anything with this MCU, and then they'll reboot and recast with all new actors, like the Avengers. They'll do some sort of in continuity way to bring all of the old characters back, played by different actors, eventually. And that'll be one of their next big Avengers movie to get butts in seats, which,
because it's another new historical precedent that no company has set yet, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
They did Avengers, they took a bunch of characters from different disparate movies, put them all together. That was new. That hadn't been done since Universal Monsters or whatever. And then it's Spider-Man, and then Endgame does its whole culmination of a bazillion more, and that's new. And then Spider-Man does the in the shared multiverse thing with movies that weren't even in that continuity. That's never been done, and you're absolutely right. Yeah, the next thing to do, well, it's weird though, because we've actually had in continuity soft reboots before, but they could do it on like an epic scale where it's never been done.
Yeah. And I saw some in the comments say that they personally adore Sam Wilson as Falcon, and that's wonderful. I'm glad that he resonated with you.
Hey, me too. I love Falcon. Yeah. I didn't like that show.
Yeah, I don't mean necessarily that any of these characters are bad characters, or even there's some characters that are legacy characters that I like more than the originals in comics. Like, I'm a big Wally West fan. I don't give a crap about Barry Allen. I like the second iteration more, so I get you.
If they keep doing good stuff with her, I will have that with Kate Bishop.
Yeah.
I totally will. She's bossa nova.
Yeah. So, it's not impossible, and I'm glad that there are characters that catch on and resonate with people like that. I just think the likelihood that you're going to be able to replace Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, the Hulk in your universe, I just don't think that anyone is going to be able to fill those shoes in terms of the iconic popularity of those characters.
And the only chance with the newer characters, relatively newer characters, because this is still, into phase 2, that you had was Black Panther.
Yeah.
And sadly, he's passed. But that's the one guy you had that was on that. Not even potentially. He was at that point on that level. Look how huge that movie was.
Yeah, which is so disappointing because I really liked the first Black Panther movie, and I thought Chadwick Boseman was great. I thought T'Challa was a great character, and now he was one of the characters that they still had that I was excited about seeing more from. And that second Black Panther movie, I mean, who knows how it's going to be?
And now there's rumors that they might not even have Shuri for weird political reasons with that actress that I won't get into. Can you imagine, because everybody figured, okay, they'll just give her the Black Panther suit, however you feel about that. Could you imagine a World of Wakanda movie that doesn't even have her in it?
Yeah, it's going to be super weird. I mean, yeah, it's just it's a weird situation to be in for them.
It's nuts that they're not recasting.
Yeah,
it's just nuts. If you're worried that you'll get a lot of backlash because Boseman was so beloved in that role, then you wait a few years. You don't have to rush that movie out.
No,
but recast it. It's not just the actor that was iconic. It's the character he played, and it's sad we're not going to get to see Boseman play that anymore. But I've said this before, and I can't know this for sure. I would be shocked if Boseman would have wanted that character to not continue.
His brother said that he believes Boseman would have wanted them to recast the role because he said that he believed. He didn't have any conversations with his brother specifically about it. He said, but he did say that he believes his brother saw the character as more iconic and important than him as an individual person. So that role needs to be shared by other people if he can't play it anymore. And I agree with that personally. I think it's very tragic that Chadwick Boseman passed away and all of that, obviously. But I think they should have recast T'Challa. I really do.
He also had a history of playing characters in biopics where the historical person was, of course, bigger than Chadwick Boseman, and I'm sure he looked at it like that.
Yeah. I mean, I totally understand where Marvel was coming from in that regard. It would have looked kind of bad if, like, you know, the week after Chadwick Boseman dies, they're like, oh, it's a casting call for Black Panther. You're
Yeah,
like,
but wait 4 or 5 years and then do it.
But the problem is, Cap, the assembly line needs to keep chugging. You have to take Black Panther 2's script out of the continuity place it was in before and rewrite it to whatever the heck's going on in the MCU at that point. And who knows if that's even possible. You know?
Yeah, like you say that, but I think you're giving them too much. You're right that it's an assembly line, but I think more so in the formulaic nature of it and all the pieces, like, technically, because they change things around quite a bit.
Sure, yeah, they change things around quite a bit,
and they rush things out when they think they've got an idea that people will, like with Spider-Man and like Eternals wasn't, you know, in that slate until I think a little bit later, and I don't know, like.
I just mean, like, okay, the Doctor Strange movie, for example, is a multiverse movie because that's what every Marvel movie has decided it's going to be now. It's going to be a multiverse thing with characters from different dimensions and stuff.
Right.
If Black Panther has elements of that in the script because Kevin Feige said that, now they can't do it in Phase 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have to change some things about it. It would just be more complicated, I think, to wait 4 or 5 years. I think if they were to recast it, they'd probably want to do it almost immediately. But, I mean, I don't know.
Well, then another way you could have played it.
That was the right thing to do for the story. Like, I would have waited and then done a sequel maybe years later, maybe a full-on reboot or something, if it was just its own movie series that didn't have to worry about all these other things.
Yeah, of course. But, you know, at the same time, I mean, like, yes, you don't want to be crass, but all you have to do is continue developing the movie if it's got to be developed. I think, again, I don't know for sure, but I would imagine Boseman would say, of course, life moves on. And I would think you don't have to announce somebody next week. Just don't announce it yet. Keep it a secret for a while. Like, try to you know, respect the man's legacy and then tell us all about it when you've got more of it made or something. I mean, that might be a hard thing to keep under your hat, but I think they're too worried about that. I think they're too worried about the crassness or lack thereof of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's a thing. So which super chat did that come from?
that was Super Billy's. Okay, the next one is a spoiler that we've been avoiding the entire show.
People spoiled it in the comments before, too.
From Hawkeye. Yeah, sure, but people listening to this later might not be looking at the live comments. If you were listening to the show after the fact, you will now have this spoiled because we have to read it. It's in a super chat. But Hawkeye has been over for a few weeks, so it's not a big deal. I don't mind doing that, but just spoiler warning for everybody. This is a spoiler, everybody. Go ahead and read it, Dan.
So we have Norman Oztwit, and he said, quote, well, I guess Norman Oztwit doesn't say this because it's a Vincent D'Onofrio quote.
Oh, okay.
He says, quote, I keep telling people it's the same Fisk. People seem to get confused by that. Rightfully so. But that was the intent with Kevin, the producers, writers, etc. Yeah, I mean, I think even if that was the intent, like, I have not seen it, so I cannot say. But I think potentially the execution is maybe what concerned or confused people, not what their intentions were.
So
you know?
You could make the intentions clearer, and I don't trust that. Saying it's the same Kingpin is not the same thing as saying... So, Kingpin is in that show, everybody, and his performance is more or less exactly what it is in the Netflix shows, but the writing is different, and he is just kind of a one-dimensional, big heavy villain, and it's kind of silly the way it plays. He also has super strength now for no good reason. But
because it's like the comics.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's a different version, then that's fine. But I would recast it. But if but here's the thing. If Feige's like, no, it's supposed to be the same Kingpin, the wording with that feels very deliberately still ambiguous to me. The same Kingpin does not mean the same thing as everything that happened in those shows is in continuity. It's not necessarily the same thing. It could be, well, those shows were popular, so we're going to do more or less the same sort of iterations of them, but they might conveniently avoid ever talking about most of anything that happened in those shows.
I think that's probably true, and I think...
And that's what they've done so far. So if the intent is, that's in continuity, first of all, hey, Feige, why don't you go on record and say the Netflix shows count, or these are the ones that do? And secondly, have any reference to anything that happened in any of those shows in Hawkeye. I saw it one time, but as far as I know, there wasn't anything.
Yeah. From what I've heard, the Hawkeye show contradicts things in his backstory in the Netflix show. So it can't...
I think it does.
It can't possibly be in the same continuity from what I've heard, but again, I haven't watched it, so I don't have a fully formed opinion on that necessarily. But yeah, I think that's just where the disconnect comes from to your quote. Like, people were confused by the execution, not what the intentions of the people in the production were.
Well, I would argue they're confused by the intent too, because you can't tell if it's in continuity or not.
Yeah, true. All right, so
I think the intent was similar to Spider-Man, but not exactly the same thing. Shock everybody with a character you didn't think would show up.
Yeah. Like the Matt Murdock cameo at the beginning. They do the exact same thing, just with another Netflix character in Spider-Man. All right. So, Super Billy says, I'm still appalled by the fact that Disney Marvel conceptualizes action scenes and does extensive previs work before they even have a script.
Me too. Yep. And we talked about that earlier. Are there any other super chats? Are we finished?
There's one more from OzTwit once again. And he says, regarding Fisk's strength, there has been a time jump with the blips, so there would be some change. But Vincent implied the character's always been this. I assume he means strong. How does blinking out of existence or remaining on the planet for 5 years give you superpowers?
Well, I don't think that's what he's saying. I think he's giving it too much credit and saying, well, you don't know what happened in those 5 years. Maybe he developed superpowers somehow. And if he did, then at some point they're going to have to tell us that, and I will be shocked and dismayed if that happens. Especially with the... I mean, when you see the show, you'll understand why this is. D'Onofrio doesn't know what was happening in that show. He just did whatever was written.
Well, and the writers added him very last minute. They've talked about that.
It watches that way.
Thing. So, like the Spider-Man cameos, it was really slapped together.
Yeah, it really watches that way, because most of what's in that show does not watch slapped together.
Yeah. All right, so that is the last super chat. So I think we're good, unless anyone speak now or forever hold your peace. Did I miss any of them?
No, I think we got everything.
Okay.
But yeah, speak now or forever hold your peace, because we gotta, or let me know about it next time, and I'll answer it.
Yeah.
By the way, I didn't mean if I came off that way to make fun of the last super chatter. I was just saying, like yes. What I'm saying is, you're right. In 5 years in this universe, sure, maybe somehow he got superpowers, but I would be really surprised if they at some point said, oh, by the way, here's how he got superpowers. Like, I think it's much more likely to be what D'Onofrio is saying, and they've just decided that he's always been that strong. Like, I just don't see that character from the Daredevil show being able to rip a car door clean off its hinges. Like,
no, definitely not.
He does that.
He's just a strong guy in the TV show, like a normal person in the TV show.
Yeah. Like,
he's strong, but he's not.
He seems nearly bulletproof in this.
Oh.
I don't know if he's wearing a bulletproof vest or what exactly, but it's like, was it like point blank arrows into his front or something that just kind of bounce off him? I can't remember now, but like he's practically bulletproof. Again, I've seen it one time, and it was like 3 a.m. when I had to get up late and take care of one of my daughters. That's the reason I've already finished it, because I had to do something while I was taking care of babies getting up too late in the middle of the night. Okay. He put in one more super chat. Thanks a lot, Norman OzTwit. I just wanted to get to say it.
Apparently, apparently Norman has some strong opinions about Kingpin.
He does.
He said, to elaborate further, D'Onofrio also cited his fight against Daredevil in Season 1, stating that there isn't a real difference in strength in his mind. Well, in my mind, there is.
Yeah, and also, I sympathize with D'Onofrio because I always take anything an actor says, especially about a thing that just came out, with a grain of salt. He's doing press interviews and stuff. He's selling the material, and maybe that wasn't from a press interview, but like wherever he said it, it's recently aired or it's airing now. Whenever he said that, like he's gonna want it to sound like it goes well with what came before it, if that's for whatever reason what Feige is wanting. But again, I don't know why they're not making that clear and more explicit. But I don't know. It just, in my mind, it's like, yes, of course he's saying those kinds of things. That, like, I take that with a grain of salt.
And then Norman says again, also Feige has confirmed before that the Netflix shows explicitly inhabit the same continuity of the MCU.
Has he continued saying that?
I feel like I've heard him say that they're not in canon too. Like, that changed a lot. Because obviously the first seasons think they are. Because the event that allows Kingpin to come to power in the first season of Daredevil is the invasion of New York by the Chitauri.
And they continue referencing that forever, but that's the only thing that really matters all that much. Occasionally there's references to some other things. Like the Harlem thing with Hulk comes up, like, you know, background on a newspaper in Luke Cage, but I mean it's real rare that those kinds of things happen. And it's also impossible to track the timeline in those shows with the MCU. Mm-hmm. Once you get to the second and third season of some of those shows, it's like, how much time has even passed in this in this pocket of the universe? I don't know.
Nobody can know.
Well, folks, I have got to get going, but thanks a lot for this epically long, again, Captain Logan show. Dan, thanks for doing it with me, and thanks for sticking around. It's so long, because we haven't gotten to talk like this in a long time, and it was nice covering the gamut of stuff with you.
No, it was really fun. I hope that when the episode is watched by people who aren't live, that I don't start an angry mob for my Spider-Man opinions. But I did have a good time talking to you and interacting with the audience as always. And thank you all for having me. It was a pleasure. And I hope to do some more collaborative stuff with you in the near future.
Oh, me too, man. Yeah, I'm really glad that you've been able to come back more recently and do more stuff with me. I think the smartest move you possibly could have done was potentially incite an angry mob while also promoting your new podcast. That was that was a really good idea.
Very true. I saw someone in the comments earlier. I think it was actually Norman Ostwit. He was like, "Oh, so I think No Way Home is the reason why he started a Conan podcast." And I was like, yeah. I mean, that's kind of part of it. Like, just because Conan is kind of a Marvel character, but like the interactions I've had with the Marvel fandom about this movie are very frustrating to me. So I've kind of like I gotta find other things to be excited about, because I feel like just a grumpy old man complaining about Marvel not being good anymore.
Dude, I had that a little bit with Star Trek and Picard especially, but that crap's not making $2 billion.
Yeah, very true.
So I mean, there is a fan base with that's difficult to talk to, but it is not not as difficult as with Spider-Man to find people that feel the same way I do about it.
Yeah, and to be fair,
it doesn't feel that controversial when I talk about how bad those shows are.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair to the MCU, even Spider-Man No Way Home never reaches the depths of Kurtzman's Star Trek bad.
No, not by not by a million miles. Yeah. I would even go as far as to say that the more recent bad Star Wars movies don't do that. Even that third one, okay, no, I mean it's still ain't Discovery. I'd still rather watch that. I will watch that 3 times in a row than one episode of Discovery.
That's totally fair. I'm much more.
You don't know how fair it is.
Yeah, I'm much more of a Star Wars person, so those movies hurt my feelings more than they probably should. But the Rise of Skywalker is just like I did not like The Last Jedi, but it at least had scenes in it that I enjoyed and characters in it that I enjoyed.
Yeah, no.
There were a lot of things I didn't like in it, but Rise of Skywalker was just beyond.
But where we're at now, at least you've got some decent Star Wars on TV. There's nothing for Star Trek and tons of Star Trek, and it's a problem.
Yeah.
I did finally watch a couple of episodes. I don't even know why. A couple of episodes of that 3D animated Nickelodeon thing that they're doing, Prodigy. I might talk about that next week because I've got to get going. But
yeah. Well, I'll be looking forward to it.
I'm sure. Anyway, so lots more stuff going on this weekend on Geekvolution, something every night of the week, and hopefully the weekend, and hopefully Sunday if I can get all my ducks in a row for that. Even if I can't get everything done for V for Vendetta, I may go ahead and broadcast for a little bit and do something cool that night anyway, just because I said I was going to try to broadcast. So tomorrow night is the game show. 10 o'clock Central, and then Saturday is my kind of DJ music stream. Come hang out with me that night if you got nothing better to do, or just put it on the background. It'll be good for that. We'll be doing a playlist of music, and that'll be on YouNow, and I'll post a link to that when I start it everywhere, and then hopefully Sunday night I will also have a stream here, and hopefully it will be Superhero Rewind. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Hope you had a good time, and Dan, you were wonderful for doing this. Really appreciate you, buddy.
Of course, yeah. No, I would. Anytime that you're looking for someone to co-host with you, like, I really enjoy doing this. So thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
Of course, man. All right, bye everybody. We'll see you later.
Bye.